Gervais finally made it, so it's time for the Comics Aficionados live right here on Thinking Critical YouTube. People are laughing, and I guess Gervais, he's always, he goes to his own time. That's the way he goes. And,
We're laughing.
We got a lot of.
We're laughing because you threw him under the bus. Carry on.
I'd already done that in the chats. I was like, yeah, we're waiting on Gervais. Otherwise, we'd be live right now. You can't lie to the viewers. I'll lie to you guys, but you can't lie to the viewers. We should have a fun day here today. Some of you may be wondering where Doc is. Doc is being domesticated. You know what I mean? Ooh. He's got a lady friend, and he has new responsibilities, and she has decided to take this Saturday for her out. So we've replaced him with the indomitable Eric Breed. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right.
That's it?
What do you want me to do? Finally, the Breed has come back to the aficionados.
Very nice. So a lot of people don't know this, but you are not like exclusive to Thinking Critical or whatever. You actually have a lot of shows that you do on YouTube. If people want more Eric Breen, where can they find you?
In the gutters.
No, you got your little your old guy thing.
Or the 4-color fossils. That's the promo poster for it behind me. And I do a lot of readings on the Geeky Puppet Show where we massacre classic comic books and occasional appearances on I Love Comics.
Definitely go find him. Lots of fun stuff going on there. We have somebody that had a very successful Kickstarter kickoff this week. Drew from Comics Elite. How you doing, Drew?
I am doing fantastic. Can't wait to talk about comics today. And yes, Born of Blood 2, we launched it last night at 7 o'clock, and we're about to cross 26,000. So, yeah.
Congratulations. You're fully funded, so people are going to get the book for sure now.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely they are. If they submit their surveys correctly, informants about their addresses. Oh, hey, Josh.
What's up? What
do you do, Josh?
You
forgot your address?
Drew asked a couple weeks, like, yo, have you gotten your book yet? I'm like, no, man, I haven't. And I this last time that he was on, I was like, let me go check and make sure. So I was checking my email and I didn't see anything for Born in Blood. And I was like, what the fuck? I know I backed this. I know I did. So I'm going through and I'm trying to figure it out. So I was like, well, let me try just logging in to Kickstarter. So it was Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me try logging into Kickstarter. So I'm trying to log in. It's like, there's no account for this email address. I was like, oh, fuck. It's under my old email because I'd backed stuff like years and years and years ago. So problem was solved. The reason I didn't have my book was completely my fault. Drew and the team, they were on top of their shit. I was not.
Shocking.
I know, right? We're all shocked here.
Also with us is Gervais Dargan, live from Chicago. How you doing, Gervais?
I'm doing good this morning. Happy it's Memorial Day weekend. Looking forward to doing absolutely nothing. So I'm good. Nice. I'm glad to be here. I don't consider this absolutely nothing, but I'm good to be having a weekend where I can do absolutely nothing.
Did the wife put you in the pantry?
No. This is my new office. We moved. So we moved over the last month. So we're happy. But I'm glad you think my office is a pantry though, but that's okay.
Hey, there's shelves in the back. We'll make it look, there might have been groceries.
We'll make it look less pantry like in the future.
It would have been better if she did. Who else we got? We've got Gabe Hernandez from Weird Science DC and Comical Opinions. How you doing, Gabe?
I'm doing just great. Also want to say, because it is Memorial Day weekend, to all the aficionados and everybody in the chat who has served in the military, and viewers past, present, and future, thank you for your service, and my full respect to every single one of you.
Very nice. Do you have any reviews out that have been getting you a lot of hate? And we know that you upset a comic writer not too long ago.
Let's just say that I've had 1 or 2 reviews that I've probably had to pare back to try and keep that a little quieter. But no, so far nobody's thoroughly upset with any of my reviews. I mean, when you're one of the toughest reviewers in the industry, that kind of comes with the territory.
So you're having to be less honest about the comics?
No, not less honest, but maybe I soften my critique a little bit more.
Oh, my goodness. The kinder, softer, gentler Gabe Hernandez.
Sure. We'll go with that.
Sounds like a lot of fun. So we got good stuff happening. We had a mix of things going on in comic books. Obviously, the big one would have been Batman, the Fortress #1, Gary Whitta. When we get a page, Gabe, we'll do it to you first. Obviously, you read this when you. I don't think you reviewed it. I think someone else did, but
Yeah.
it's a story, and there's just one page that feels completely like it's out of place. It comes out of nowhere, and Batman's like, "You see these looters? Not really my problem. They're just here trying to get a carrot, because they've been held down, and that's not what I do." And it felt so out of place for the character.
It's definitely out of place for the character. It's antithetical to the way Batman has been developed and how he's evolved for decades at this point. And I've seen some online reaction from Gary Whitta when he's gotten the criticism about that, where he basically said, heaven forbid Batman have a social conscience. And this is one of those circumstances where whenever you put your personal ideological message in the story where it doesn't fit the character, it doesn't turn out well. It never turns out well, ever, ever, ever. And this is one of those cases where Batman has been in more than one City on Fire, just City of Bane, or in all the movies where, let's say Batman Begins and the city's gone riot because of the fear gas and everything else. Over and over again, he's put into situations where the city's just gone nuts in a night of craziness. And every single time he stepped in to try and calm it down, diffuse the situation, get everybody into a place of safety, and just kind of bring Gotham back to at least settle Gotham back down. This is the complete opposite of that. And this is just an example of another, I hate to say it, and I don't mean to generalize Gary Whitta, but especially when I look at his reactions, this is another example of a Hollywood writer who just wants to kind of get his message out there when it doesn't fit the character, and the result speaks for itself. Plus, I'm not a fan of the art. It's okay, but it's not great.
I would say the art is not the biggest problem in Batman the Fortress Breed. What did you think about it? You've been reading Batman a long time. Did it feel like a good, solid take on Batman with a social conscience, or did it feel like Batman with Gary Whitta's social conscience?
That. Now, I've been saying for years that the big two aren't writing comics for the audience they have. They're writing for the audience that they want. And whether this guy, this Hollywood writer, he definitely put himself into the story, but Editorial continues to let this happen time and time again. And Gabe, you mentioned the criticism he took on Twitter. The first thing he comes back with was, "Oh, it's just right wingers that have a problem with it." Well, nobody likes when someone puts their own politics into a story, or if they do, again, maybe it's that audience they want. But that's why people like me don't read the stuff anymore in anywhere near the numbers that we used to, because we're tired of stuff like this.
Anyone else have any thoughts? What do you guys think over at Comics Elite, Drew? Did you notice this?
Oh, a couple weeks ago when I read the retailer preview from Lunar, I was reading through it and it got to that page. I just stopped. I said to myself before I reacted, I'm like, there's no way they're going to print these pages. There's no way. They're going to catch themselves. They're going to be like, okay, no, Ben Abernathy's a smart guy. He's going to nix these pages. Sure enough, we get the books. I read it. And I looked at my brother Kyle. I'm like, you got to read this shit. And then I sent it to Wes. Wes, you got to read this shit. And I could not believe it, because this just goes against anything and everything Batman stands for. If everything I've read, and this writer's an ass. That's all I'm going to say. He's an ass, and it's a shame that he is getting this gig. It's a black eye on Batman.
But it's not really surprising that he used to be the EIC of like PC Gamer, was in all that Gamergate stuff, right?
I never read that stuff, but I've just heard word of mouth about it. So
yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts? What are your thoughts on this, Gervais? Usually pretty opinionated.
Oh yeah, well, I haven't read the issue yet. It was actually one of the books I was going to pick up, but I'll just say this. Clearly, my man has never been to one of these protests. There's plenty of evidence on YouTube and other social media and Facebook of actual protesters at these protests stopping people from doing some of these things. So the simple fact of the matter is, apparently there are Black Lives Matter protesters. I can't speak to Antifa because I've never been to one of those. I don't know their philosophy, but I know there are Black Lives Matter protesters who clearly have more of a sense of justice, or at least how to civilly protest and show some disobedience, if you will, that Batman clearly doesn't have a grasp on. Because anyone who's going to, quote unquote, peacefully protest goes to peacefully protest, not to burn stuff up, not to break windows, not even to tag graffiti all over the property or what have you. There's always this small amount of people who basically come out there to these protests that just mess stuff up. And then there's just basically just mob violence. Like we also saw here in Chicago back during the whole, I believe it was the George Floyd stuff. It was just people straight up looting, and that's all it was to it. And so don't make something out to be something other than what it is. There's protesting and there's looting. And if Batman's down with looting because he wants to have a quote unquote social conscience, good luck with that, because he clearly doesn't subscribe to the broken windows, the broken windows theory of policing. But it's out of character, and it's like, and as was pointed out when the article that you sent us was that clearly Batman's a NIMBY, because when they break into his house, he shut that joint down quick.
He may have hurt those young men that broke into his house. And touched his mom's pearls.
I'll add in 2 points about that, and one comes from the chat, and one is a little bit of an extension of that. Is the first one is I saw a couple of folks who were chiming in as like, well, this is Elseworlds. It's sort of out of continuity, doesn't count. I'd love to say that, but DC has proven, especially recently with the creation of Hypertime and the Omniverse, that anything is fair game. And that, I think I read a recent article with where it was an interview with Tom King when they asked him, is Black Label considered out of continuity? And his response was exactly the response you would expect: is it's out of continuity unless it becomes popular, and then DC reserves the right to bring it into continuity. Yep. So just because they may say it's out of continuity now, doesn't mean it stays that way. It doesn't mean it's permanent. The second point on that one is I'm starting to hear chatter that where we've been banging, not to be malicious or mean, but just in terms of criticism, we've been banging on the writers for, I would say, a long time at this point. And that's proven not to get anywhere. The editors' names are starting to come up more and more in conversation. So especially when WB Discovery is going through a bunch of upheaval, Ben Abernathy and folks like him ought to be very cautious about associating their names with books that kind of do little swerves like this, because my sense is their names are starting to get pulled into the conversation, and not in a good way. So that's not, please don't mistake this as a threat or anything like that. I'm advising caution, because now instead of people starting to look at the writer saying, you wrote this garbage, I hear the conversation turning into, yeah, they wrote it, but the editor approved it and said, yes, this is good, and this represents our publishing company, and this represents the IP and the brand. So the person who has the call is the one that's going to start getting more and more of the criticism if this continues the way it's going now. And that's just something to keep in mind, and something folks need to be more aware of as we go forward.
That's true, yes. Gabe. And a lot of times these writers now, a lot of them are deflecting to the editors, saying, hey, this was not my idea. This is what the editor wanted to do. So, yeah, that's lot of the blame now is rightfully going to the editors.
Yep. Yeah. And it's interesting because I was going to say in the past, you wouldn't see that. Everyone's trying to be team players. But I think now that it's kind of like, Hunger Games and you're having to fend for yourself, you're seeing where people's true alliances come from. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think there are times where writers need to stand up. And you can do this without like completely throwing people under the bus. But if you write something and it's not your idea or it's not your dialogue, you have a right to say, hey, I actually didn't write that. And you can stop it at that, and you're not being accusatory or, like throwing a blame game, but you're still kind of setting your boundaries of like, respecting yourself. But no, I think Gabe is 100% right. These editors need to be careful. Their names are coming up more and more frequently. I would say Abernathy was one of the people that if you go back 2-3 months ago, he probably would have been more of the safer bets to stay safe, because he's doing something that's quote unquote actually selling. Now you could have a debate whether or not, his book should be selling more or not. But at the end of the day, he's overseeing Batman, and Batman is selling. But when you start doing little things like this and you start creating pockets of discourse, you put a target on yourself. So they have to be careful.
They also just promoted him, obviously, to executive editor within DC Comics. So they probably did that knowing this book was coming out and what was in it, though. It's
astonishing, really, because when I go back to those 2 pages, if you take, you could have had a solid good comic book if you take out all that dialogue and just have Batman plop down there in the middle of the street, just standing, looking at the looters. Doesn't have to do a damn thing. Just have a panel of him, a page of him looking at the looters in the eyes, close up of him looking at them in the eyes, and then they stop. That'd be so much more powerful than what happens.
So Wes and I clearly did a video on this because we talk Batman every week. Well, if I'm available, we talk Batman. But I said this exact same thing. I was like, all he had to do was drop down in the street, and the moment he dropped down, they would have like thrown whatever they were trying to steal, and they would have scattered like cockroaches, because that's what would have happened. And people that understand Batman get this. You know, I've seen a couple people mention No Man's Land because of the looting and the riots and stuff. Not riots, but just, you know, the city taking over. If you'll remember, they had ways of spray painting the bat symbol on walls. You know, they took that same idea for the Dark Knight Rises. They used chalk. It was just a matter of saying my presence is here. In the recent the Batman film, they did this with the darkness. People knew Batman would come from the darkness. So if something was like pitch black, they're like, no, we're good. Let's go. Let's forget it. So his presence alone can do so much. And the fact that they just ignored it is one problem, but then that they leaned into like, oh, it's fine. These people can take these TVs. These companies have insurance. They'll be fine. Like it's so backwards.
But that's because the stories you referenced, the writers were writing Batman and not writing themselves cosplaying as Batman.
100%.
Well, and it's just like you look at the history of Batman and what is being said in that panel or that page by Gary Whittabreed is he's saying, you don't expect me to stop somebody that's just trying to get a carrot, you know, that's had bad times. It's like, well, what was Joe Chill doing when he ripped the pearls off of your mother's neck and ended up shooting your family? He was just trying to get a carrot, right? That essentially is exactly what started his entire mission and kind of pushed him onto this. But this writer doesn't even realize that.
Well, that's because you can't attach logic to virtue signaling like this, because again, you're right. Gary Whitta's not going to stop this because Gary Whitta would get his teeth kicked in, but he's writing Batman, who, like he said, all he would have to do is drop down, and like I said, yeah, they scatter like 10 pins, but again, like I said, he just took that moment to write himself as Batman for 2 pages.
And someone just brought up in the chat, I mean, look at The Dark Knight Returns, one of the greatest Batman stories ever told. When the city has the blackout, people are going crazy. Batman pops down there, he's on horseback, telling everyone to stop, and just telling, and even the police, he's too big right now. We
started posses and stuff, right?
Yes, yeah.
Running down criminals. This crazy stuff. Well, I mean, it's not crazy at this point. That's the problem, Josh.
Yeah.
We see this stuff so often, and it's like, again? Well, I guess it is again.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I feel like people come to me and they're shocked when there's a bad Batman story at this point or something's written poorly. And my general take at this point is like, I'm more shocked when something's written well. I'm more shocked when characters are written, on point and they look and act like themselves. That shocks me more now, which is sad. Gabe, you mentioned something Whitta said in an interview about having social something.
He tweeted out he couldn't believe the response.
Batman had he was saying he was taking it as a badge of honor that he wrote Batman with a social conscience or something to that effect.
And see, this is what blows my mind because I feel like he still could have accomplished this without that scene because he already accomplishes this in this book. So if you go into later when you have the people actually break into Wayne Manor and he stops them, when he's like knocking the crap out of these guys, one of the robbers says, "Hey, please don't. I've just got 5 kids. I've got kids to feed." There was something along those lines. So Batman, knocks him out. And then he turns to Alfred and says, "Hey, do some research. If this is true, let's see what we can do to help them through the Wayne Foundation." Referring to the kids. And you're accomplishing that exact same idea, that same goal right there.
And that was fine.
That was 100. That was Batman.
Yeah. And then the reverse of it, I think Whitta had a follow-up, something to the effect of like, excuse me if he didn't stop a riot because he had to go save a school bus full of children from the Joker, which, okay, fine.
He wouldn't have known of that.
Yeah,
the
no
timing that's part of the story.
The timing didn't work out on that, so that I think that's useless. But the second part of it is that rescue scene with the school bus was ridiculous. Why would Batman blind the driver of a school bus that's moving at speed on a bridge?
Yeah.
Why would he do that?
That whole
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 sequence was
wreck
stupid.
scene. Yeah,
It was stupid.
You have an entire wreck here where Joker goes flying through the front windshield of the school bus, and the moment that happened, I was like, well, what about all the kids? There are not seatbelts on school buses.
And then he goes through this whole monologue about how maybe he should just let the Joker fall and die.
Yeah. Oh God!
I was like, come on, man.
That's
I
new.
can't do it because the kids are watching. I can't do it because the kids
Guess
are
you
watching.
get to live another day, Joker, or something. Yeah.
So if the kids weren't watching, you would have let the Joker die? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, he always
on,
murders
man.
that one guy. He's beating him to death, and he doesn't stop until the cops stop him.
That whole comic's a mess. It's just, and then Gary, and then he's, take your L's. Just take your L's. Stop doubling down. That's what's so infuriating is when it doubles down. Don't double down.
Anybody that had issues with the comic book was alt-right, according to him. In his social media.
Ridiculous.
It's like, what about all the Batman fans that you pissed off? Is that a badge of honor? Because you should probably be trying to please them, since they're the ones that are paying for the fucking comic book.
It's funny. Before we went live, we were talking through about all the comics that are on the top 50 or whatever from the point of sale charts and everything else, and they couldn't really think of a really, really good Batman book. I take it back. The best Batman that's on the market right now is World's Finest, and it's not even a Batman book; it's a duo book.
Yep.
Yeah, that thing is absolutely fantastic. Before that, it was probably what's the Max and Tomlin Batman? That was really Elseworlds. The Imposter. That was still a good take on Bruce Wayne. They obviously tweaked some things about it. We do have a few super chats. Let's see what the viewers are saying right now. Callum Weil says Obi-Wan is a giant middle finger.
I like the
I
first
watched
episode. I like the first episode. I haven't seen the second one yet.
Man, it's like you're giving Callum Weil a giant middle finger, Gabe. What's the hell, man?
There was nothing in it that bothered me. How's that for a backpedal? There was nothing in the first episode that bothered me so far.
Hey, Aaron Sparrow, he said he liked the first two issues. He thinks the direction's good. So I don't know. I haven't watched it. We don't have a Disney Plus here, so we shall see. Wolfstein 3D says, when our choice is between mantle swaps and heroes being written out of character, Eric Breed turns around, looks at his old books, and thinks, I made the right choice.
It's true.
There's so much good stuff out there, especially if you're a Batman fan, Josh. Like, if you started reading Batman today and you were a new reader, you would never catch up.
I mean, that's probably a good thing. Like, let's be honest.
That's what I'm saying. There's so much out there. You don't really need the new stuff.
Oh yeah, no. I have people ask me all the time, like they'll be interested in reading a Batman comic and they're like, where should I start? And I usually say year one, but then I will give them probably, like, if they read a graphic novel a week, I will probably give them 5 years worth of reading and none of it's present day. None of it. Except maybe Court of Owls, but
Court of Owls is pretty good. But
I mean,
yeah,
do we
it's
even
one of
consider
the
that present day?
It's one of the good things about being a comic fan, Gabe, is there's so much history with the vast majority of these characters that are popular that you just don't need the modern stuff. You don't want to.
I mean, I'm thinking like Long Halloween, Hush, No Man's Land. I mean, those storylines right around in that area. Anything past that, I can't really think of anything. City of Bane? No, not really City of Bane.
No.
Yeah, I mean, once you get past like that Hush era, kind of, past into the early 2000s, there's not a whole lot.
Under the Red Hood is probably one of the last great stories they did.
Yeah. But past that, if you're looking for like this arc, it can perfectly encapsulates that character. There's not much. It's just sort of floundering and all over the place.
Grant Morrison had a good Batman and Robin, but it's Dick Grayson Batman.
Yeah,
it's still really good.
I think his whole run is actually really that. If you're interested in the Bat family, that time period was really good. I think the supporting characters outshine Batman, but Batman also ended up dying. Spoiler. But yeah, like all those books around that time were good. Like Nightwing leading up to him taking the mantle was good. Batgirl with Stephanie Brown, and I'm not a fan of Stephanie Brown, but Batgirl with Stephanie Brown, good. Red Robin, good. All good books.
I really like Lemire's 3-part Robin and Batman mini from the end of last year.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Absolutely.
But it was very. But I mean, the biggest problem was it's too short.
Yes.
Way too short.
Yeah, I mean that is really kind of typifies their relationship and how and really focuses on Robin, but within the context of the Bat family, and really makes it something special.
Yeah. I loved issue 2. Issue 2 was so amazing. You just
with the Titans.
Yes.
Oh, that was fantastic. I love that. I love that issue. That was great.
All right, we got Cal Lyle asks, "What is Jim Lee doing seriously?"
He's drawing while everything is burning.
You're drawing a paycheck, you know what I mean?
I was about to say, like, he's like, the ship's going down, but my prints are going to make money.
I mean, we've said this before that it feels like he's holding his breath. Maybe it's my imagination. This could be completely anecdotal, but does it feel like there's going to be some kind of major shift somewhere around August? Or is that just an annual thing? It seems like a lot of changes and shifts in who's writing what and who's creating what seem to be scheduled for August. And I'm wondering something's significant about that particular month this year.
I think it'll be at the end of the year once Dark Crisis is over. We'll really see a big change and shift.
Okay.
There should be some type of status quo change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it looks like Josh Williamson is definitely taking a step back and focusing only on Dark Crisis. So he kind of gave up Robin. Obviously, he's not doing Batman anymore. Deathstroke Inc. goes over to Ed Brisson. I think it's mostly him stepping back. Yeah, interesting stuff. Gal Lyle also says that actress for Black Batwoman needs to tone it down with her ego. She compared her performance in the show to Black Panther.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Did they cancel that show?
Yes, they did cancel it.
Javicia Leslie?
I think it's like Javicia. I think it's the YJ.
Yeah, I think Luke Cage, Black Lightning, and Blade might want to have a word with her about that particular assessment.
Read a hard way.
Blank Man, or
yeah.
I don't know. With Black
Mantis-
Panther steps through that like little portal at the end of Endgame after Falcon says "on your left," a little tear going. I don't think Batwoman ever did that.
No, if for whatever reason there is a portal in Endgame and that Javicia Leslie's Batwoman popped through, you know that meme of the angry lesbian when Trump won and she's like screaming no. That would have been the audience.
Amazing. Like I multiverse myself into DC. Like whoops.
Sorry guys.
All right, Blade Kramer has something for Eric Breed. He says, Breed, top 3 moments of the Great Darkness sagas. Go.
Oh.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Really?
Yeah, it's been so long since I've read it. I can't even fake that one.
See, Pat Broderick's art is amazing. I'll say that.
I'm sorry, Kramer. Breed let you down.
I did.
Goodness.
I got to go back and read that. I got to go
Agreed. That's what I was just thinking.
I know I have
the trade. I should probably go get it and read it again.
I have it in my Comics account, but I got to get back to it.
Yeah, he's talking about the Great Darkness Saga, or what is a sequel to Greater Darkness Saga? Because I don't remember that.
I'm assuming it's Legion of Superheroes, right?
That's what I took it to mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know there was another Darkness saga, but that was wasn't that Bendis? What are they doing? I don't know, man. Sorry, buddy. I wish Eric Breed didn't drop the ball on that one. Way to go, Eric. This is your fault. Mike Knight says Lade Kramer with the super chat. Well, thank you very much for noticing. Cal Lyle says the 2 Batmans you don't talk about is Arkham Asylum game and the Telltale Games version. Do you play Arkham Asylum, Josh?
I'm not a gamer. I do not, so I am completely out of the loop. I have watched YouTube videos of some of the story elements from the Arkham Asylum games. They are on point. I think it's great storytelling. I think it's overall a great depiction of Batman and the villains. Some of the guys that I wrote with the Batman News are all about the Arkham games. They played them. I know one year at SDCC, they had like a virtual reality experience thing you could do of Arkham Asylum. They're supposed to be really good. I just personally have not played them.
You know, it's crazy. I actually, I had like a PlayStation 4 or whatever, and I had the Arkham games on it, and I couldn't do it because the game kept forcing me to play it the way it wanted me to. Like I couldn't just go explore the city. I had to go where the game told me to go. I was not happy.
Wes is like, I'm trying to run down this alley, but an invisible wall is stopping me.
It was like it wouldn't let me do anything unless I went and did the adventure as it was planned. I was like, why am I like cosplaying as a movie character here? Like I want to explore the world.
Did you submit a lengthy op-ed to PC Gamer asking for an easy mode?
Easy mode. I want to play the game in my own goddamn order. I don't want to have to do it at their pace. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. You didn't like the sequence of events. Like,
yeah,
like
you
had to follow their narrative.
You can go play the Legends of Zelda any fucking order you want. Now it's really hard if you go to level 9 first, but you can do it because it's there to explore. The game is like just like a movie that you're moving the character during.
I mean, if you want that kind of experience, I play this game sometimes. It's DCUO, which is DC Universe Online, and you can compose yourself as Batman, Superman, all the DC characters, and you interact with all those characters. And it's an open. Do
you have
world.
A guild? Are you inviting me?
No, I do not have a guild, and it's
You're
been a
not
while
a guild
since I played. What?
You're not a guild leader.
No. But I mean, if you want to play a DC game and be Batman and just run around the world and do things in the order that you want, that's probably your best bet.
I played Clash. I don't have time for games anymore. Although I think I'm going to be getting my son a gaming system somewhat soon. And we got Ideator. Obi-Wan was perfectly fine. You have a breed of fans who don't or can't appreciate anything and use work as a MGTOW slur. The show's Star Wars. I haven't seen it.
What's MGTOW?
I think it's men going their own way. Isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Like
I mean,
dudes that decide they're just like, women are evil, so they're just never gonna like date anymore, but they're not gay or something. I don't know, man.
The thing I'll say with Ediator's a comment, and I review lots of stuff, lots of stuff. You got to be careful not to allow yourself to get cynical.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes when you get into this rut where you just review too much stuff that's just awful, as we're talking about here, there's a tendency to let you that when you actually encounter something that's okay or just fun, that you're so like worked up over reviewing bad stuff that you just want to kind of project that negativity even on something when it might be okay.
Yeah.
So that's something we constantly have to fight against.
I call it shell shocked, Gabe.
Yeah.
You're a little shell shocked. You're like
comics PTSD. You just kind of like.
No,
you need palate cleansers.
Yes,
Yeah.
Gabe's 100% right. There are plenty of times that even when I was reviewing, I had to like just, even though something was due on a certain day, if I were behind, I just had to come in late because I was like, I can either write an honest review and get it to you a little late, or I can write it now, get it on time, and it's going to be like a rage review because I'm still pissed off from this other book, and it's going to treat this book unfairly. I've been there. I get it.
Yep. It's okay to let things just be fun, and they don't have to be deep, and they don't have to be super meaningful. They don't have to shake up the earth in the implications. Sometimes it's okay just to have a little dumb brain fun. And Obi-Wan was better than that, but at the same time, it wasn't terrible. It's okay to just let it be what it is.
Yeah, this is when everyone was telling me The Mandalorian was great. I wouldn't watch it. I was like, this is a video game. You go and you beat the boss and you get an armor upgrade. Then you go beat the next boss and you get an armor upgrade. I was like, I get it. There's some fun elements in here. The only time I was really, really excited though was when Luke showed up at the very end of the second season.
That was a great moment.
Yeah, that was a nice. Yeah, that was a good one. Yep.
Almost made it all worthwhile. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen Obi-Wan yet. Has anyone watched it yet, or are we the only people that didn't get to see it?
Yeah, I'm planning on watching it this weekend. Yeah, that's on my watch list. Yep.
The first two episodes are out. The first one's okay. The second one I'll probably watch this weekend.
Right. You're probably gonna like it. I'm glad you're gonna be checking it out. I think you'll have a good time with that. We got Cal Lyle says off topic. What worries me about the alphabet, people are getting close to adding a P, and that's when people must protect kids. What do you think? It's a lot of push for stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with kids. I just did that video about genderqueer being censored for kids, where you can't just go buy a copy of it with your 5. But I agree with stuff like that. That book is far.
So what's the P? What's the P stand? What's the P stand?
Starts from PEDO.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck that. Yeah,
oh.
no.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to give it a
minutes
new
to figure
name.
that one out. I had to figure that one out.
Yeah.
They're trying to give it a new name, like Map or something. Where I guess it's softer.
No,
But
what?
not going
What
with
the?
that.
Oh.
right? Isn't that what they call them?
I do know they've been trying to get rid of the stigma of the pedophilia, which is like nothing you can say or do is going to get away from any type of stigma. Not going to happen.
No. You're starting to mess with parents' base emotions. That's when all like thoughts and it's just particularly, your only focus is on protection, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, they wouldn't even be able to add a B to that. So I'm not a B. Wow.
That's that blows my mind.
Hey, some people will fight and they'll kill you over their dogs. I'm not sure where they go. Hey, what are you doing? The scruffy.
Look, if you're a grown adult, you love who you want to love. You do what you want to do in the privacy of your home. Yep. I don't care. When it comes to my kids, you off limits.
Yeah, or any
I don't
kids,
care
really.
what or any kids have off limits 100%. That is non-negotiable.
Let kids have their innocence, and I think that was kind of what your video was alluding to. Forget the sexuality aspect of it. Just we shouldn't be exposing kids to sexuality isn't like who you prefer to be with, but that book in particular shows so much graphic stuff. Like, let's keep kids innocent. I don't care if it's straight sex, gay sex, whatever. I believe that there is a time and a place for kids to be introduced to that, and it's not when they're children.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not up to the schools to make that determination either.
Yeah. No.
Kenneth Dallin says, "Hello, fine gentlemen. I read this comic. I agree this is not in character for Batman. He stops criminal behavior regardless of politics. The worst thing is the comic is not good at all. That is the worst part." Now, Josh did do the glass is half full kind of thing, and he pointed out 3 lines of dialogue that he likes in the entire comic. But otherwise, he had to concede that I was right. The whole thing was just a mess.
It's not a good story. There were moments that I appreciated, but they were very brief little moments that were pretty much in a panel here and there. I mentioned one that was the Batman stopping he was technically Bruce Wayne, but he stopped the guys breaking into the house, and he made the line about the kids and the Wayne Foundation. Good line. There was a good kind of brief exchange between him and Gordon talking about friendship. I thought that was good. That's about it. The only other thing I can give this book is craft-wise, structurally, and story-wise, it's okay. It's solid writing. But everything, like the story isn't great, and the characters are so off point that it just ruins any aspect of that. So, yeah, not great. Not great.
But the character's only off point But the character's only off point if you're presuming that on this particular world, this is not the Beck Bennett version of Batman. So if those of you who've seen the SNL sketch Wayne Thanksgiving, this is probably that Batman after that Thanksgiving evening, where he basically found out exactly how the residents of a certain city feel about him. In that sense, the story makes sense.
It's not supposed to be an SNL skit, Gervais. Oh my goodness.
That's all I'm saying.
Kenneth Dowling says, in response to Cal Miles' chat about adding a P, they tackle that in an episode of Law and Order SVU. Crazy stuff. Yeah, a lot of Law and Order out there.
Yep, they do. Yep. But I know what he's talking about. That was a good one. Yeah, and it was a tough one to watch. Yep.
Oh yeah, it's once you start dealing with kids and stuff, like you're starting to mess with emotions and things that people just can't be polite anymore. You know what I mean?
No, look, I'm not a parent at all, as far as I know. But if someone has a kid, but look, if someone were in danger, my kid, they're dead. That's all it is to it. I'm sorry. That's
yeah. And someone mentioned, school and education earlier. I'll throw this out there. My mom has been a teacher for 28 years, 29 years. And she was always a champion of the public school system is not as bad as you think. It's not as bad as you think. Within the past 5 years or so, she's been a proponent of if you can homeschool your kids, homeschool your kids. So
absolutely. If you could do it, it's absolutely worth it. It pays a lot of rewards at the end. We've got Cal Lyle. Mag seems to be pushing for that, especially after that I will make all your kids trades tweet. I think she was trying to be especially edgy there.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely but it's hard to be edgy with something like that. It just comes off as you're evil. You know what I mean? Yeah. I remember that tweet. That was a strange one.
Definitely presumptive.
We're coming for your children was not a good place to go.
Didn't she just announce that she's working on a new comic project with Joe?
Maybe I know he was her editor on Kim and Kim.
Yeah, I think he's editing an anthology series and she might be doing something.
I think she has a story in the Archie thing that he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No.
Well, all I gotta say is I hope he's focusing more on my comic series than yours. So.
I will say Joe is very good at multitasking. He can handle many things on his plate.
Okay. There's some good jokes there, but we shall bypass those. Rodney Sanders, paying my tribute to Wes for liking my comments on his channel every week. Thank you, Critical Family. Love you all. Comics Aficionados, thanks for great conversations. Well, I appreciate that. Actually, there was a time that I wasn't able to get to the comments, but now I take out like an hour and a half of every single day. I have it scheduled into my daily activity to where I can go in and read all the comments and make sure that I keep on top of them. So I appreciate that you noticed, because it is a lot of work. So like over an hour a day. It's shocking how long it takes to get through all the comments. But really appreciate the support. We got anything else going on? We do. We got. What's that?
I was just gonna. Oh,
Joe's
sorry.
in the chat. Sorry, Joe's in the chat.
Oh, that's awesome.
Joe, he's talking crap about you. Don't let him get away with it.
No, we just because Mag's name came up, and I just saw something earlier that said Joe was working with Mags on something. No comments, no accusations.
I'm throwing Josh under the. I'm sorry, Drew under the bus. He's the one that said he better be working on my comic.
I was just gonna back that last super chat, guys. Wes talks about going in the comments as someone who's been on videos, and I try to do the same thing as infrequently as possible. It takes time, and I don't know if you've noticed, but Wes's channel is growing in popularity, and we're getting more and more comments, and he's still taking time to do this. It takes a freaking shit ton of time. So Wes is a good guy. A lot of people don't take time for that, and it just helps build a community. So
when I first started the channel, I would actually personally respond to every single comment. And I did that for like a year, and then eventually that was taking like 2.5 hours a day. I was like, I can't keep this up. It was too much. But definitely going through and read them has been a much easier task, although I do try to reply as often as possible. Mike Knight says, I just realized I only buy Black Label from DC. Is that normal? Is Black Label the best DC stuff? Wade Kramer and Cal Lyle with the Super Chat. I don't blame you for that, because supposedly, it's Elseworlds. Maybe it's not in continuity. It's certainly more adult-driven stories, mostly featuring Batman and Batman-associated characters. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are actually a lot of people out there that only read Black Label. What do you think about that, Drew?
To be honest with you, I don't think so. There's some good stuff, but I don't think it's the best. I mean, I'm going through like all the Tom Taylor Hellblazer one, the Wonder Woman Astoria, and the Suicide Squad one by Brian Azzarello. These really aren't that great. They're okay. I love the Jeff Lemire Swamp Thing book. We've only gotten one of those, unfortunately, so far. But it's not
the Green Hell.
Yes, yeah. Doug Mankey on the art. Yeah,
that's a good one.
But it's just overall, they're I would say they're okay. They're not the best. Oh, Batman 1 Dark Knight. Those are the two right there, I would say, are the best.
Yeah, I would imagine that there are people only reading the Black Label stuff. Plus, the DC continuity sucks right now.
Yeah. And the other thing is they relabeled Kingdom Come as a Black Label book now, which I completely disagree with. That is
really?
Yes.
Wow.
They went and relabeled a lot of those books Black Label, I guess, to give the line more cachet, I guess.
Well, yeah. If you go back when Black Label was first announced, it was intended to be a mature reader line, and then there was kind of some flack before it ever even launched, so that kind of halted. And then they started citing it as like the premier line. It's supposed to be your top talent writing top books, which then you have to wonder okay, what are you saying about your own books that's in your regular line at this point? And then the whole Batwing happened, and then everything just kind of became Black Label is just Elseworld.
Is this where they put everything that didn't fit into continuity?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And the size definitely hurts it, as Larry from Larry's comments said in the chats. Mm-hmm. Those plus size formats, you don't have the sleeves and stuff. They don't fit into your long boxes.
Stuff.
Yeah, I do know Ernie has told us that he stopped ordering that stuff because they just don't sell. Collectors don't want them, and yeah, it's a bad move on DC's part.
I'm sorry I interrupted you there, Gabe. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say that's most of what Tom King is writing for DC falls into that Black Label category at this point. It's mostly Tom King stuff right now.
The Tom King label.
So basically, Black Label is where characters go to get character assassinated. That's where
go to die. The doctor says, like the smash button on the Doc is Right show. The doc, yeah, get out of here, man. You're supposed to be giving me a break, man. I shouldn't be having to deal with this. You're already badgering. We're at 97 likes. Thank you so much for everyone for liking it. If you haven't yet, you want to support the channel. We've been over 250 live viewers for a while. Definitely give us a like. Let everyone know that we're having a good time here. And we do miss Doc. I do like to give him a hard time, but he is domesticated now, folks. He's no longer a wild stallion. You know what I mean? He's been saddled.
Oh,
he's off doing domesticated things.
Domesticated.
Lade Kramer, Doc is right. The best show rebranding. Good choice. Nah. If I was going to rebrand the show, it would be Thinking Cynical. I don't know what I was thinking. It was actually hard to get the channel going because Thinking Critical is something that's used for something else far too often. It was actually hard to get it suitable for comic books. Thankfully, we've kind of gotten over that problem now that the channel is somewhat popular. But yeah, Thinking Cynical would be the rebranding. It's definitely not Doc is right. Doc can get his own channel. YouTube's more work than he can handle. Trust me. He likes just coming in and hanging out on the weekends. Galileo, Mike Knight, I gave up on comics years ago. I got rid of them all. I only seem to read manga and Lady Death books. Sometimes I draw my own. Yeah. Manga's a good thing. I just ordered me a copy of Kaiju number 8, volume 3. I got my Shonen Jump. Are you reading more manga or comics these days, Gabe? What are you reading for fun?
For fun, probably defaulting back to the manga. So yeah, Kaiju number 8, Black Clover, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man. I was catching up on Death Note. I'm trying to catch up on One Piece for Gary's channel because she and I are working on some retrospectives. So be sure to give Nerdy Girl Creates a follow if you don't mind, if you want to get into some of that stuff. So we've been over this a million times. There's nothing the Western direct market can do to compete with manga right now. Nothing.
Nope.
The price point is too good. The quality of storytelling. I'm not saying writing. I'm not saying art. I'm saying storytelling. When you put it all together and create a story, is vastly superior to anything that's in the Western direct market right now on a consistent basis. And you just get so much for so cheap. The Shonen Jump app is just $2 a month. So if you don't mind reading digital, $2 a month, and you get everything from the beginning of time.
And the app tells you whenever you get a new chapter.
It tells you when you get a new chapter.
Your story ended. Here's your new chapter. It showed up today.
If you have the app, you can save your place. I mean, granted, it's manga, so it's reverse style, so you got to read left to right. So as long as you can adapt to that, you're fine. And it's almost all black and white. But I hear people making the argument about color versus black and white. I don't get it. If the art's good, the art's good.
Absolutely.
I think when they color manga, it's going to do very well. I think they're going to resell all of them in America.
You want to hear an interesting perspective on color? Perch did a video recently where he was comparing Bendis's Superman Man of Steel debut
John Byrne,
to John Byrne. And one of the key differences you see right off the bat is how much coloring brings that new version down. So
it's all muddy once they start blending.
Dark colors for I've been reading.
It's dark, it's dour, it's grim, it's depressing art. It doesn't pop, and you can see that earlier version with John Byrne was like 2D. It's very simplistic. It's just like very kind of, I would say almost like crayon level in quality and brightness, but it works. It's vivid. It captures your eye. It draws you in. Say, look at how color. I know it sounds like you're jingling keys in front of a toddler, but yeah.
But it brings optimism. It's positive.
Right. It seems light. It's, you're jingling keys in front of the reader, but it's bright. It's exciting. It's energetic. And then you get to the Bendis version, and the coloring just bleh. It looks like somebody ran it through a mud puddle. But the quality of the execution of the coloring is good. The contours are there, the texture's there, the shading is there, but the palette choice is just so bleak. And it just brings the visual interest down. So when you say, well, coloring makes everything better, no, it doesn't. You still have to have the right colors on it. So at least if you're doing black and white, you kind of take that out as a pop point, and you just rely on the inks to carry the story. And if the artist is good, then you're good to go.
Well, this is a little bit more to it than just black and white. You got to have shading and grayscale and stuff. But
when I hear people making the argument, well, it's not in color, so I can't get into it. Doc, I think, makes that argument. So
it does. He's that guy. You know what I mean. Kenneth Dowling says the best Black Label books are Sean Gordon Murphy's White Knight books, in my opinion. I don't know. Are DC's Black Label?
No,
I don't think it is.
No, I didn't get a sense he was Black Label.
Yeah. Well, they went back and relabeled a bunch of classic books Black Label, but the modern stuff, Sean Gordon Murphy certainly had a lot of good stuff. I mean, I still think his White Knight, the very first volume, will go down as like one of the comic books that's been written in the last 10 years that'll be read in 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's Elseworlds. There's no doubt about that. It's definitely got more of an Elseworlds. But Black Label is just, Black Label is just Batman's Johnson. I mean, that's pretty much what you let out the gate with. So it's like, yeah, to put Kingdom Come in that category is just kind of crazy. And I don't think Black Label has earned the stripes to get some of these titles that it sounds like they're putting under that label. It's like, nah. It's, yeah.
Plus, I think the Murphyverse is for the most part in the near future, right? So it's not like it's current day for the most part, I think.
Well, right now it's in the near future because it went to Batman Beyond, but when it first started, I think it was pretty much supposed to be the same time, but it was just a different Earth. It wasn't obviously ours.
Yep. And it's mixed in with the Batman animated series, so it's really its own thing.
Yeah, that first trade, that first run was definitely like a love letter to not necessarily Batman comics, just Batman generally speaking, like the pop culture phenomenon that is Batman, because he pulled from so many different things. Like he pulled elements from comics, he pulled elements from the animated series, he pulled elements from the films. Like he paid homage to a lot of that, and I think that's part of the reason why it resonated with so many of us. Looking at Black Label, there's been other good books. Most of them are Batman related, as everything is, but Harleen was really good. I liked it. Joker Killer Smile, I thought was good, like done well. I wouldn't say it was one of my favorites because it's dour and depressing, but
Batman the Imposter was good.
Batman the Imposter I enjoyed. Again, it's a dark, gritty take that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's
Batman Reptilian, right?
Fuck no.
It was fun. It was nuts.
Hermaphrodite.
Mr. DC Comics says the demonization of aspirational characters like Superman and Captain America for the anti-hero and villains. Does the big two still believe in heroism, or is today all about not aspiring to be better?
I think it's just cynicism. It's all nihilism and cynicism. Too many people watching the news. Just get away from the news. Get out in the real fucking world.
I think it's 100%. I think, and I was going to say, this is not even a big two problem. This is a society problem. This is something we face as a problem in our world today. And Drew's exactly right. We're too plugged in to things that aren't one-on-one engagements and interactions. And then everything that we do in our life, the decisions we make, the stories we write, stem, from that. And as a manager, as someone who hires people, I'm seeing it more and more with kids. They're more and more cynical. They're more and more critical. They're less forgiving, and they're less aspirational in their own life. It's just. And these
I heard at McDonald's they're demanding signing bonuses.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that.
Because McDonald's offered them. That's because McDonald's offered them. I think they're signing bonus too.
Yeah, they demanded them, and that's the only way they could get people to work.
So companies started offering them this goes back to about a year ago when people were still getting their checks,
COVID bucks.
Their stimmy checks. Yeah.
And it was like, why am I I get it. Why am I gonna go work if I'm making 3 times the amount of money sitting at home than I would if I were at work? Like I understand their mentality. At the same time, it's like, go work because you should be working. Also, hey, taxes. But yeah, no, like there was such a struggle to get people to come in and do a job that they had to start offering bonuses, and some of them were like $1,000 a month for a year. Just as long as you come in and you stay with us, we're going to pay you an additional $1,000 a month for at least a year. It was crazy.
Yeah, but I think you also have to be careful that people who were getting the checks just weren't doing anything productive. They was just doing what they wanted to do. Now, if you want somebody to go flip burgers, then it's like, yeah, you know what? If I'm getting a stubby check and I'm being economically rational, I'm not going to come flip your burgers unless you basically offer me more money. So that's the way it works.
Yeah,
once
you should be giving people free money for not working, I think is the answer. Once the
stubby check dries up, and then realize, okay, you still got to pay bills anyway, then we'll return back to normal. But if somebody gives me a bunch of money and I don't have to go work for you, do whatever I need to do, oh yeah, if you want me to come in here and flip your burgers, yeah, that's going to be another grand, son. And that's all there is to it. That's economic rationality.
Yeah.
Brian Rickard says, I'm still repping the manga Sakamoto days. 10 out of 10.
It's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
No idea what that is, but sure.
Don't worry. You're going to know all about manga soon enough. You're going to read enough bad comics that you...
It is the future. You're going to have to get into it. You know what I'm seeing more and more of lately? I'm seeing more and more artists, especially on the smaller, mid-sized publishers in the Western side of things. More and more, their art styles are taking on manga influences. So if they're not getting the story writing the same way, they're getting the art style is starting to pick that up more and more. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start getting those big eyes, kind of the long sleek lines. A lot of that influence is starting to seep in.
The doctor says, "F manga weeb shit. It's boring."
I think we should all chip in and get Doc we should all chip in and get Doc a waifu pillow for his birthday.
There's X-Men manga out there. He knows if it's good. He's not even that old. He just looks old. He looks so old he can't change. You know what I mean?
My Hero Academia is the X-Men wishes it could be.
Hey, One Punch Man is the character Superman fans wish he was. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great characters over there that are superheroes that are telling much better stories with better progression, and you don't have people going in and bastardizing the characters and ruining them. It's definitely, there's a reason it's an alternative that's growing. So give it the times, Doc. Comic books are passing you by. All right, so let's move on to another topic. We sat on that Batman one for a long time, but I knew people would want to talk about that one. But we do have Netflix kind of cleaning house, or at least it appears that they are. Their subscribership, I think, slowed down tremendously. They actually lost quite a bit of money as far as their valuations on the stock market and whatnot. It appears they may have gotten rid of some of the riffraff. Gabe, I know you like to do the entertainment news and you like to read up on all the money makings and whatnot. Are Netflix really waking up and cleaning house on some of their issues?
Yes, to the extent that it's not about waking up. It's recognizing that you can't support a business that loses money.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a Netflix subscriber, but the only reason I subscribed to it initially was because I knew that's when I heard that the Marvel shows were coming, like Luke Cage and Daredevil, and I was thrilled with that. But those have been taken off and now moved over to Disney Plus. So my incentive to stick with it is gone. But a lot of people love Netflix. But let's look at what they love Netflix for. They had the movies you couldn't get anywhere else, which is no longer the case. If you get something like Tubi, or Funrise and some of those like weird ad-supported stuff, or you liked anime because they have a lot of anime, but now they're shutting down their animation division, so that's not even a factor anymore. And then you had the original programming, but what original program did they have that's really like super great? That isn't like some kind of weird YA teen drama XYZ, and who cares? And then everything else is like foreign shows out of Korea and the Netherlands. And so if you're not into foreign shows and you're not into like, mid-tier level success movies, of course the viewership is going to drop off. What do they have left? They have Stranger Things.
Which is ending.
No, to me, this is the problem that's been a long time in the making. Because to your first point, Gabe, it was like it used to be the place where they had the movies, and then at one point, Stars was eating their lunch when it came to that one. It was just like they had movies lined up on Stars, and it was just like, why am I even bothered with Netflix anymore? And I think, and I'm going back years in terms of that aspect of it. And I think just over time, they definitely benefited from the whole pandemic, that happening. and just people being home and watching something. But in terms of their offerings, it's been declining for many, many years now. Now it just caught up to it. Now that things are starting to at least somewhat get back to normal, this is just like, they're projecting forward, just like all the tech companies are. And everyone's just basically cleaning the house because they just realized they're in for some tough times for the next year or two. And that's what happened.
The irony is that Netflix killed Blockbuster. They were a major contributor to killing Blockbuster because instead of having to go to a store, they would just mail you the DVD. And like some of the young kids in the chat is like, "What's a DVD?" Yeah, you have to watch a movie like this. That model was directly contributed to killing off Blockbuster's business model. And now here we have it's basically the cycle repeating itself. Is Netflix stopped trying to compete? They stopped trying to say is we need to be the premier streaming service because now you've got Amazon Prime, which has got great stuff like Reacher, and for better or ill, they're having this, Lord of the Rings. I'll watch it. I don't know. I'm curious.
Reacher is really good. Reacher is
really good. You have a bunch of other stuff. They got a bunch of old movies that you can't find anywhere else. I love like classic horror movies like Hammer era, that kind of the early 70s. I love all that stuff, and they got all that stuff on there. You got Disney Plus is competing with Star Wars and Marvel and all that other. It's a competition market now. The streamers have moved in the competition era, and Netflix didn't step up.
Yeah,
they say we were good where we were. We are the top dog. We're number one. And when the competitors started gaining steam, they didn't do anything to compensate, and they just went right down the hopper.
And Gabe, back to what you said about Blockbuster is that if you think about this, back in the day, before Enron fell, Enron partnered with Blockbuster to do video on demand, but it was too ahead of its time. It didn't work. Just if they just waited, who knows what would have happened if they weren't that early to the game. But yeah.
Well, yeah. Now I was working in the video industry at that time, and in the home video industry at that time. And I'm just telling you right now, anybody with half a brain realized that was a bunch of junk. And now, because Enron, that's a whole nother animal by itself. It's like clearly that whole mark to market nonsense. That was when they tipped their hand, because it was like, bro, you're collecting profits on something that technically you don't have the infrastructure to do yet, much less the technology to pull this off. It was way too ahead of its time. Yeah, I mean, Mark Cuban was rolling out projects like that at the same time in terms of bringing movies directly to home with those simultaneous releases. And the problem is even that he admitted, it was just at some point you have to have the technological infrastructure in place to pull that stuff off. I would say his motives were a lot more noble than Enron's was in terms of partnering with Blockbuster. But yeah, with Blockbuster, I mean, Gabe is right. It was like when we were in it, it was like once Netflix started creeping in, it was like everybody's business went down almost overnight. It's like, if you were doing like, say $5 to $10 on a weekend, it went down to basically like $1 to $3 over a weekend. That's how devastating when all the delivery services and all the streaming services started coming up. It just totally transformed that industry very fast. Yeah, and Netflix was the thing, and it's just that once the competition came in, they didn't come up with enough stuff to replace what they knew they were going to lose, and that's where they are now. It's like Stars was the first.
You want to connect some really strange dots? Netflix is partly responsible for AT&T buying Warner Brothers DC. Because what was happening was Netflix, when it started to hit big, they were getting into slap fights with the internet providers like Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, and what they were saying was like, you're throttling us even though we're paying for it, and the cable companies and the DSL companies were saying, no we're not, you're getting rich. And then what happened was there started to be a push to say the internet providers are not media companies, they are utility companies.
Utilities.
Right, which I think was under Title IX or something like that, which would have subjected them to government regulation about quality of service, the speed upkeep, and everything else. So to avoid getting reclassified as a utility, they started snatching up entertainment companies so that they could be categorized as entertainment and therefore avoid the government regulation. So because Netflix became popular, it forced the internet providers to start buying media companies so they can maintain their status as a media company rather than get reclassified as a utility provider and lose their regulatory avoidance. And so that's what forced a lot of companies like AT&T to buy WB Discovery. That's what forced Verizon to buy all those other. That's what forced Comcast to buy NBC and everybody else. So Netflix, in a roundabout way, is responsible for the mess we're in right now with DC. Because it forced all those.
That's a good 7 degrees there, my man.
Another thing about Netflix that I think hurt them in the long term was they got comfortable and complacent being the default setting for streaming. Just like when you think of soft drinks, you say Coke. And that only works for so long because eventually somebody will say, hey, these guys are getting pretty fat and lazy over there. And
Green's right, because my family, we had a discussion about dropping Netflix, and it's like literally it came down to it was just like, well, we just had it so long. None of us could think of a good show to keep it. It was just like, we've always had it, and just in case, it's not like, oh yeah.
I can't remember the last time I turned on Netflix. The last 4 or 5 shows I've watched have been on Amazon. Got to plug
Amazon or Hulu.
I'm pretty much on the verge of dropping Netflix, but if I do, it'll probably to replace with HBO Max because they've got like Green Lantern shows coming up and some of those DC type properties that I might check out just for a little bit anyway. But yeah, Netflix
that $5 option is pretty good.
Yeah, Netflix is quickly losing its appeal, especially with price hikes, and they've been hiking the prices every year.
Yeah,
well, they're going to 25 a month.
They just suck nowadays. There are not very many good ones. The only thing I'm interested in is the that movie that's going to be the last chapter in that Forgotten or Last Kingdom show. But that won't
the Viking show.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think Gabe and Breen both mentioned 2 of the key aspects of what's hurting Netflix, and one is the pricing, the price hikes. Netflix, this benefited them during the pandemic when everyone was forced to stay home because government regulations. But they put so much money, too much money, into creating original content that it was the only source that was really providing consistent original content. So during that time period, they hit a boom. And, now competition's back. But even before the competition came back in, I feel like Netflix ran into the same thing that the MCU is running into. Like, for the longest time, people didn't take Netflix seriously, just like people didn't take Marvel seriously. They had something to prove, so they made a point to try to prove something. And to do that, they had to create good quality content. Now they see themselves as the head of the pack, just like I think Marvel does. And they're not trying. They're just phoning it in. And this is the aftermath of that. Like, this is what you're seeing. People don't care anymore. There's better options elsewhere. So they're going to go elsewhere.
Well,
and when the collapse comes,
the
it's
lady
going to
that
be
was
devastating.
responsible for all their big shows like Orange is the New Black and whatever. There was like one executive, but they thought she spent too much money, so they replaced her with another exec who greenlit a lot more projects that were much more budget friendly.
Yeah.
So we've gotten a downgrade in quality. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Gervain.
Oh no! It's with Netflix when the collapse comes, because at this point, especially with Netflix talking about going over the price hike and that savage beating that stock is taking in the stock market. The simple fact of the matter is, at this point, because we as a family going to revisit this again, because now that HBO is doing, I believe, they're doing the $9.99 if you're watching with ads. I think on Peacock you're doing the $4.99 with ads. At a certain point, you'll be able to stream at least 2 or 3 or 4 of these streaming channels, and basically for the same price you're paying for Netflix every month. And it's just not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to hold that up. It's just not going to happen. That's not counting the ones that you get free on your phone anyway. Like for us, we get Hulu free with the Sprint subscription. So it's like basically, unless you're just really holding out for a favorite on Netflix, which is Stranger Things, I'm basically paying $25 a month to watch that one show. And once my brain catches up with my wallet, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I'll just go buy the gift set or buy the season set from a Blockbuster, Best Buy, and just get it over.
The amazing thing here is the business parallels between what you saw with Blockbuster versus what you see with Netflix, which is what you're seeing now with DC and Marvel as a comic company. You get the company that thinks they don't need to try to compete. They keep jacking up prices when their consistent customer base starts dropping off, and eventually you reach a breaking point where you've got to start making changes or you're going to be in the hopper. And that's exactly what we're seeing with DC and Marvel. The only difference is DC and Marvel right now are only, to be fair, within each other, within the Western market, they're only competitors to each other. Manga's creeping in, and that's creating a problem. But if you get another company that steps up, it could be Source Point, it could be Dynamite, it could be any one of the smaller publishers. If somebody steps up with a interconnected kind of pure, basic, but tried and true kind of superhero universe to compete with that, now you're in trouble. Well, yeah, of course.
Image has a couple of them. They got the Spawnverse, and they've also got Supermassive. They're kind of picking up steam. Yeah. So,
but it's not their bread and butter. It's sort of like niche for Image with the superhero stuff. Even though Spawn's been around forever, but it's not what they did. That's not what they're known for today. They used to be known for.
Yeah, but Image and Image is so decentralized in the sense that it as a brand, it almost can't compete just by the way it's operated, both editorially and even just their business model. That's why they've never been able to really give Marvel or DC a run for their money, because there isn't a clear brand identity. There isn't a clear one. And, it works for those who, it's like Invincible becomes more a brand in and of itself, but no one's going like, oh, Image equals Invincible. It's almost two separate things. The Image is just a conduit for a bunch of character brands, but it's not the brand itself.
It almost becomes like a sponsorship.
Yeah, exactly.
This is part of Image. Plus, if you look at the members of the Image's newly inaugurated union, I don't think they would let them go to a superhero.
Yeah. But nobody goes Walking Dead as an Image comic. That's not like the thought in somebody's head. Walking Dead is a brand in and of itself. Yeah.
Right.
So we do have a few super chats from the viewers. Let's see what they have to say. Ideator, I'm left politically, but semi-right culturally. You can't look at the world as if you are right and everyone else is wrong, and then tell stories with your bias. That's today's cultural trend.
Yes,
that's absolutely what's going on today.
It's a lack of empathy, just a general lack of empathy. The ability to see something from somebody else's point of view is just really absent these days.
Yeah, or just go ahead.
When you get into a story and it's clear that the creator thinks the one side is completely right and the other side can't be right in any circumstances whatsoever, it's not compelling storytelling. There's nothing interesting about it. I already know how you think.
Yeah.
Let an interesting story play out. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Josh.
No, you're good, man. I was going to say the exact same thing as you. And I was going to mention, like, I miss the days when writers would kind of lean into both sides of an argument and kind of show the pros and cons of both. There are plenty of times that I've read works by writers and I didn't know what their actual stance was because they covered both aspects so well. And then there have been times that I've suspected a writer would have certain political views because of how they approach certain stories, and then would find out they actually have the opposite. So, it's to me, that's where good writing comes into play and being a good storyteller comes into play. And it's severely lacking in today's climate.
Yeah. You read The Watchmen and the way that Rorschach has kind of portrayed Eric Reed. You can tell by the verbiage what Alan Moore is trying to get across, but the way that Rorschach conducts himself, and he's the only guy in that universe that kind of is principled in the end. He's the only man that sticks to his principles throughout. So you kind of end up seeing him as the hero, even though it's kind of clear or potentially clear that what Alan Moore is trying to get across. And it makes it for a more compelling story because he's not the bad guy.
Well, one of the things you can tell when someone's a good writer is when they can write something that they're ideologically opposed to and make that character believable and relatable. I said that, and someone mentioned, I said that's lost in today's writing because there are very few writers that can do that. Like Ed Brubaker leaps to mind, but most people, again, they can't write past themselves. So when you see a character make a statement, it's not the character, it's the writer. And that's where I said it just waters down the storytelling when all you're getting is that particular writer's point of view.
Yep. Cal Miles says, I gave up on Netflix after transgender Tila and not Cowboy Bebop, but thank God they canceled Ava DuVernay's not racist baby. I like He-Man. I wasn't like He-Man isn't a deal breaker for me. You know what I mean? If you got a bad version of that, you have other stuff on there that I'm good with, and it's still exciting. But Cowboy Bebop was definitely an eye opener there, Gabe. Not a very good interpretation.
that was the Cowboy Bebop was one of those. Nobody asked for this. You shouldn't have done it, and now you see why. It was just it was Cowboy. When we talk about anime, Cowboy Bebop is arguably always top 3, top 5 in anybody who's just like really into anime for good reason. And there was no way on earth they were going to be able to reproduce that, capture its spirit, and do something either different with it or improve upon it. It just wasn't going to happen. So I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but whoever that person is, I sincerely hope for Netflix to say that they're no longer employed there, because that was a judgment call of epic badness.
And what did the actress? And what did the actress came out? She made that video or statements about her not looking like the one character. It's like, ooh, bad move.
Yeah, that's when it was just like,
Yeah, the entire point of that character is she's a femme fatale. She uses her sexuality to get what she wants, to kind of make progress through the story and to establish herself as a character. She uses her sexuality as part of her weapon. It's her tool set. So when she comes out and she's like, well, I can't be sexy and I'm not going to show myself off and, I'm not going to be sexualized. It's like, well, okay, that means you just completely missed the whole point of that character. Not to be just there as a sexual object, but she uses her sexuality to get her way, to kind of make progress through the story as a weapon, as a tool. And so when you take that away, you just basically, I hate to say, neutered everything that's beneficial about that character.
You emasculated the character.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the point if you're not even going to just take the traits of that character? You don't have to look like her exactly, but if you're going to take away the points of her that made that character who she is, and establishes her as a femme fatale, then what's the point? Bad move. It was just a terrible move.
Brian Rickard says, can't wait for Tom Taylor's Batman reach around. Sounds like it's Black Label to me. That could be
I thought this was going to be Superman. I thought it was going to be the next Superman thing.
Maybe. King KDI says, the strongest thing about manga is not the art, it's the story. The 3 E's: enjoyable, entertaining, escapism. Netflix knows it. Amazon Prime has it. Yeah. It always comes back to the story, If there's relatable characters, that's what it is to me. It's always the characters. What situation have you put them in? How have you defined them? And are they acting in accordance with that? And how are they, going to ultimately come up and win? And I just, we don't still get that a lot of Western comics all that often. So when you see a Batman, Superman, World's Finest breed, it really stands out as something amazing. Whereas 20 years ago, it might have just been really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's something that I wanted to bring up in the last block. World's Finest feels like the kind of book that you would want to collect. And that's something that when the big two stopped doing comics for collectors as well as the readers, and pricing has a lot to do with that. It's very difficult to collect comic book companies whose baseline price is $3.99, and most of them are more. But also the storytelling, it's like cotton candy entertainment. Even the ones that don't have the message, they're out of your head as soon as you read them. So that's something that if a choice is reading comics that aren't going to stick with you, aren't particularly good, and paying $4 a pop, or what you can get for that $4 in manga, if it's just down to that, manga's going to win, because a lot of the people that are in the hobby now don't have that emotional attachment to the characters because they have been reading and collecting the issues for 30 plus years or however long.
Kenneth Dowling says Netflix is following suit after CW canceled shows by activist writers who write woke content without solid storytelling. If it ain't good, no one watches. You know what's interesting? CW didn't cancel any of that. That was all canceled by Warner Brothers. CW wanted to continue on with Batwoman. They wanted to continue on with Naomi. They actually wanted to keep the content because it was cheap, very cheap. And with their advertiser dollars, they kind of they didn't make money because CW's never made money. But for their business model, it wasn't a bad deal. But for Warner Brothers, they didn't want to continue going on with content that wasn't considered quality for their characters. So I think it was probably a smart move. And, I think a lot of people are going to have to follow suit here, Gabe, because there is so much competition and everyone is aligning themselves with different comic book companies and they have different characters and stories and whatever. If you're not doing good adaptations, it's really going to stand out in today's market.
Yes. So, right. A lot of the cancellations that happen at CW, I mean, it wasn't officially confirmed, but it seemed pretty obvious that Zaslav had a lot to do with those.
Mhm.
Batwoman was awful. It never should have made it to 3 seasons. I'm not even sure the first season should have gone to full term. I hate to use an abortion term, but yeah, maybe that's appropriate in that case. Batman, I mean, it was just awful. It was just so cheap. It was so poorly written. It was so poorly acted. It was embarrassing. I was embarrassed for that writer's room. And then you get to Naomi and like, well, okay, Naomi doesn't. First of all, I'm not even sure why that got greenlit in the first place. Naomi is not a popular, widely known, established character. She's not. Marvel can give all the lip service they want all day long about Naomi, but she has this much character development that from Bendis, who basically made her basically DC's version of Riri Williams, if you want to think of it that way. And it's not clear what her power sets are. It's not clear none of the stuff that what you look into as a character. Like, how does this warrant a TV show? And they get to the TV show, it was awful. It was so bad.
Well,
I remember.
I appreciate how Gabe is.
I remember once they were driving in a car. You know when they do the driving car scenes and they have like the screen in the background to make the city streets and everything flash by to make it look like they're moving. I remember that I was watching it. I think it was episode 3 or 4. They were doing that, and I could see stutter in the video replay of the background. And I was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe somebody would. You could see the video was skipping from the background scenes as the car was going by. And I was like, I can't believe how cheap this show is. And they did everything to make her basically look like a really, really cheap Superman knockoff. And they still didn't explain her powers. They still didn't kind of give a clear sense about her origin. Nothing made sense. It's like, oh, you got to stop. I don't know what they were doing. It was like padding. It was like they were just trying to fill their roster with. It was at least better than Dead Air. I mean, that's how it came across. It was at least better than Dead Air. And that's just not good enough. There are just too many options.
Bring back Ronco. I want to hear about that. What is it? Where you make the beef jerk? Remember those?
Oh, the Ronco Peel and the late night infomercials that lasted 3 hours.
Where's the slap chop when you need it? You know what I mean?
That would have been preferable to Naomi. I would have filled 3 hours of Ron Pompeo and Slap Chop and all that other stuff, infomercials. that would have been better than Naomi.
Or bring back Mr. Microphone, because then they can just stretch it out and see what happens when they come back to pick up Good Looking later.
Bassmatic 76. That's what we need. Dan Aykroyd selling the Bassmatic 76.
Infomercials for the Bedazzler.
Kenneth Fallout. If he was supposed to say, if it ain't good, no one watches it. So, well, we got that one in there. Thank you very much. Kenneth also says, I highly recommend HBO Max. No other network does prestige television, dramas, comedies, documentaries. Green Lantern should also be great on HBO. We don't have HBO Max here in the Philippines, but we do have like a scaled down version called HBO Go, which I do have. And we are getting kind of all the new shows and stuff. And I quite enjoyed it. It doesn't stream as well as Netflix. They've really got that part ironed out as far as if your internet starts lagging or something like that. Netflix kind of accounts for it. HBO Go at least isn't the seamless streamer that Netflix is yet. But they have a lot of really good stuff there. I'm just pissed off that they don't have Deadwood right now. What do you think? That show is so good.
Yeah, I'll agree. HBO's got some great content on there, and as far as streaming services go, it's probably one of your top bets. But am I the only one that's not excited about this Green Lantern's HBO show?
I love Green Lantern.
I mean, I love Green Lantern too, but like, let's be realistic in what your expectations are, because we're expecting huge space fight, a lot of CGI. If we've learned anything from the Marvel shows, you're not going to get what you're wanting.
I'm expecting a Gotham Knights level poster where they're all wearing like civilian clothing, standing and posing and looking.
Gotham Knights is CW. That's like cheap content.
This
doesn't
is
do anything like that.
But the point is like that was like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because I was like, when you watch that first episode, it was like they clearly blew through the whole series budget in the first 10 minutes. It was like that opening was fantastic, and then it was just like everybody was sitting around talking to their therapist for like the next 3 episodes. It was like, really, guys?
But again,
definitely gave me some blue balls on that one.
What do you think this is going to be? It's going to be the same thing. And also, it's still freaking Greg Berlanti. So just because it's not on CW doesn't mean...
Superman and Lois is good.
Superman and Lois is good.
It is the exception to the rule.
Yeah,
First
and Jeff Johns is on the case on that one. Jeff Johns is on the case on that one. So
Jeff Johns loves Green Lantern.
Yeah,
it's good on that.
I'm just saying, like, you've got a lot of signs pointing to not great. Will I watch it? Yes. Do I hope for the best? Yes. Am I expecting the best? God, no.
I get where you're coming from. Way to rain on everyone's parade.
I'm not trying to backpedal. I would say excitement is a strong word. I'm interested. That's probably the better way. If they can create a live action version of the Green Lantern CGI cartoon, then you're going to get me, because that show.
And I think that's the but I think that's to the point that if that's your expectation, you might be grossly disappointed, because other than that, you bring back the animated series.
But if they're looking for a model like, how do we do this? That's how you do it.
I'm expecting Jessica Cruz to be lecturing every Green Lantern and Guy Gardner every second.
How about this? I will sign up, and if Teen Lantern shows up in the first episode, I'm out.
Well, then you might as well just save your money. You know she's showing up. Her and Joe Mullen.
Joe Mullen's okay, but if Teen Lantern shows up, forget it. I'm out.
Mr. DC Comics says Netflix could easily be Amazon, Disney, and HBO with old school 80s and 90s action movies that are grand, like The Expendables. Create new stars for that. Well, they can't really get access to any of those movies because they're all on other streamers, because they don't own, they don't own any of the companies that made them. You know what I mean? They have to.
But that's weird, because I just got Paramount Plus, and it's like, and I wanted to watch the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies, and it's like they're saying, well, you only got like 60 more days to enjoy them. How is Raiders of the Lost Ark not like a staple on the Paramount Plus streaming app? I don't get that. I do not.
Well, it should be on Disney Plus because they own Lucasfilm, right?
Okay, maybe then that's what it is. Because I was just like,
it's going back there because they'd already had the contract for it.
So gotcha. a lot of this comes down to contracts too. So for instance, like Netflix will go out and they did contracts with different studios and production companies for like years and years and years and years and years, that they will have access to certain content or aspects of their library over a certain period of time for a certain portion of time. So that's why you're still going to see things from other networks that have their own streaming services now. They're going to go away and then pop up on Netflix for a little bit and then go back to the streamers or their company's streaming service. You're going to see that probably for the next 10 years at least.
That's why New Mutants debuted on HBO Max instead of Disney Plus.
Yep.
They'd already signed the rights away digitally.
Yes.
Yeah. Brian Rickard says even White Knight had Harley up as the hero. So that was different because there's two Harleys. There's the original Harley, who I believe becomes Neo Joker, and then there's the other Harley that really loved Joker that I guess Batman ends up marrying. So I don't know, man. It's not my thing, Josh. I can't even pretend like I like it.
I was waiting for him to mention the marriage because I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, that was coming. Yeah, that was coming.
That's what I got to say about that one. The art's really good, though. There's no denying that. But yeah, the weird Bruce Harley thing just didn't do it for me.
It's like a platonic marriage that just for her protect.
She needed a green card or something.
He did it for the kids. They need a father figure.
She's an anchor wife. Yeah, she's an anchor wife.
I am personally aggrieved about the imagination and creativity that went into creating Harley Quinn in the first place. When she first popped up in the animated series with Tim and Dini, and how that was just like such an interesting and engaging character, kind of modeled after the old style gangster malls of like the 1920s and 1930s, and that was something to do with that. And then since she's been brought into DC proper as a comic, they just cannot, for the life of themselves, the editorial staff just cannot figure out what to do with Harley. And I get
they don't want her to be a villain. That's the one thing that they do know.
That's the problem.
She's silly Billy, and she's relatable because she's in a toxic relationship or was in a toxic and all this other stuff. I get it, but that's not a character trait. That's an experience. That's not.
But much like Watchmen, they all missed the point of Mad Love. That was what happened. People who look at Mad Love and then they draw all the wrong takes from it. Because the thing is, when it was on the animated series, it was like the thing about Harley Quinn was it felt like she had always been there. It was like it was a new character, but she felt like she fit so well into that world, operating as Joker's abused sidekick. When Mad Love came out, which was a great book, it's much like Watchmen. People read that and they just take all the wrong lessons from it and they run with it. She's not meant to be a sympathetic character. Is there sympathy there in Mad Love? But it's like the real thing is that she doesn't get it. She doesn't get what love is actually about, and that's the tragedy of her character. Not to take that and be, what, because I don't even know what they're trying to. I don't know what they tried to do. Not only since they introduced them to the DC Comics proper, but also the DC, whatever they call it at this point, DCEU or whatever it is. No one seems to be able to get this character outside of that original iteration of it.
You're right. And point B with that Mad Love is that initially, if you read that, which a lot of people haven't, is that you go back and read that she took advantage of her teachers. And then the script is flipped on her when the Joker takes advantage of her.
There you go. Yep, that's right.
So
I've read at least 3 stories where trying to undo that.
So I will jump in because I actually have some inside knowledge on this. There's one year at SDCC that I had a late night. Well, it wasn't me; it was a couple of us, but we had a late night conversation with a DC writer and artist, specifically about Harley Quinn over frozen yogurt. And the challenge that DC faced was that Harley was growing so much in popularity that they did not want her to be a villain anymore. And then the problem that they faced was that to actively redeem her in a certain way, they felt you couldn't have her be Harley Quinn, meaning she couldn't don the outfit because the reason she became Harley Quinn was kind of like an homage to Joker. Like it was to coincide with Joker. So for her to fully be redeemed, she would have to leave that behind her. But once you do that, you completely lose the branding of Harley Quinn, and then you lose the aspect of that popularity. So the challenge was, what can we do to kind of like get her to where she's not completely a villain, but do something fun? And then
she blew up children, Josh. There's no redeeming.
I know, but what I'm saying is that was a inside conversation that went on for a good 2 or 3 years. So
but that's like even with the Venom. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, if you're familiar with people in DC Comics and what they've written, you probably know which writers we were talking to.
Yeah, but that's my problem with the Venom character. I'm glad he's doing the movies and they seem to be doing well and making money. But the whole thing is, you went from this character as this villain that was so freaking terrifying. I mean, he was like Spider-Man's Juggernaut, but like mixed with Hannibal Lecter almost. Yeah. No, I'm just saying in terms of this overwhelming, powerful character that Spider-Man really doesn't know what to do with. And he's basically a homicidal maniac. But then what happens is they take this thing of like, well, he wants to protect because he was innocent, and that's what made him hate Spider-Man so much, because you destroyed my innocence. And then to transfer it into, well, I'm here to protect the innocent. It's like, nobody wants that. I want this terrifying Spider-Man villain that shows up every 5 or 6 years. And when he does, Parker's pissing his pants. That's the point of Venom, not this lethal protector nonsense.
But back on that Harley Quinn, just one more thing is there's 2 problems. Well, there's a problem and there's a solution. The problem is she's never going to be a hero.
No.
Right? Yep. Because you're not giving her, nobody has given her a reason to be a hero other than she's tired of being a villain. That's not good enough. Every single hero in the DC universe, if you want to call it like that, is a hero because they went through something extraordinary, and they are extraordinary. So they had something that, they had either extraordinary ability, skill, talent, whatever, and they were pushed by an extraordinary event to take that step. That's why not everybody's a hero, is because they're given a reason to be a hero. Batman is the peak of human accomplishment. And so that's unique in and of itself. And then he was pushed to become a hero because of the death of his parents. Superman is sort of, this superior, if you want, just from a physicality perspective, of the superior alien race, if you want to call it that. And then he was pushed to do it because of the destruction of his home and the weight of the legacy and the responsibility that entails. Same thing with Spider-Man, same thing with every other character from any universe you can pick. They have to be given a reason to be a hero. Harley has no reason to be a hero, and nobody has given one other than she's tired of being a villain and she just doesn't want to do that anymore. That's not good enough. Yeah. That's an average person.
She became Harley Quinn because Batman beat up her boyfriend real bad, and then when she realized her boyfriend was no good, she became a hero. Right.
But real quick, the solution to that is to make her better villain. Make her a master villain. She can be a master villain.
Okay.
Sorry.
Definitely hit that one hard. King KDI, for you, I think AEW may still air on the WBD. I'm assuming that's some type of Warner Brothers digital type thing. I watch AEW on Fight TV here in the Philippines, and it's fantastic. So Are you watching AEW's big pay-per-view this week? And that's the question. Callum Lyle has this for Gabe. Is it okay if I DM you on Twitter? I want your criticism. You can be harsh. My art is bad, but I want to know your take.
Sure.
I wonder if he means if my art is bad, or is he just telling you it's bad?
I will tell him if it's bad.
Oh yeah, definitely DM Gabe. And
I'll let you know if it's bad. I'll tell you if it's bad.
And good for you, Callum, to being open to criticism.
Yes,
That's
step
a
in the
rare
ring. You got to do it.
I can guarantee you're going to get it.
Eric O'Sullivan says, I got to run to the local pub. It's National Burger Day in Red Sox in 30 minutes. Have a great day. Thanks, Wes, panel, and chat. Best Saturday morning since childhood. Huzzah.
Get there early before the bullpen gets into the game.
My goodness. The Sultan of Soup heading out for National Burger Day. That'll be great. I bet he's got a good burger soup. You know what I mean? It'll be delicious. The Red Sox are still doing okay, but they're not the Yankees right now. You know what I mean? Too bad.
Nobody is this year.
Kenneth Dowling. Josh made a great point earlier regarding great storytelling being even-handed in terms of politics. Someone who excelled at that was Aaron Sorkin. His show, West Wing, a political show, shows the good and bad sides of Dems and Republicans.
Yep. That's why A Few Good Men is one of the best movies ever to come out, because that's exactly what happened. You get both sides. That's why the Nicholson speech is so, legendary, because it's like, everything has some aspect. That's right. Everything has some aspect of good and bad. And it's like, I got no time hearing basically from people who basically benefit from the protection that I provide. It's like I serve a purpose. You just don't want to acknowledge it. But he's exactly right. Aaron Sorkin is probably one of the guys who, if anything, gets how to write something in terms of what I consider the Shakespearean style, which is you present both sides. And there's some place in that story, there's usually a monologue or something, that tells you that's what the writer's actual point of view is, what their philosophy is, but it's done so well that it leaves you thinking after the fact. And that's the impact the story should make on you. At some point, it should enlighten you to the point that you continue to explore the ideas being presented in the story. So yeah, 1,000% with that one.
And I never watched The West Wing. I was, I was like, Rob Lowe's it. It can't be good, right?
Nah, it's good, despite Rob Lowe.
No, West Wing is great writing for the most part. It has its ups and downs just like anything else, but it's great writing. The thing that I wish would happen is that the DC Marvel writers would stop watching the West Wing, because they try to reproduce it in the comics and they do it badly.
Yes,
you can tell when somebody's been watching too much West Wing when they write some of their stuff, and it's like, no, you need to stop watching West Wing, because you're not accomplished enough to be able to pull that off, and it comes off really badly.
See, to Gabe's point, real quick, because Alan Moore did, and I'm trying to remember it now because I have it. He did a thing about writing, and what he was saying was that a lot of times what writers do is, what they don't understand is the point is not to look at somebody else's work and then try to badly ape or duplicate what they're doing. The point is to look at the approach and then bring your point of view to it. Bring something you have new to it, as opposed to constantly mangling and remangling what somebody else already did in the prior work. You want to get this like artificial high of recreating, like, oh, I just wrote something like Aaron Sorkin. No, be your version of Aaron Sorkin, not just Aaron Sorkin light or Aaron Sorkin redux. And that's the point that most writers today miss. And again, going back to early conversation, that's on the editors.
Tom King trying to be 50%. What was it? Alan Moore, 50%.
Yep.
The guy that did Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino, does not work out at all.
One thing that just helps me is just going out in the public, just listening to people. Just don't know anybody. Just eavesdrop. Just listen on people in bars, restaurants, stores, grocery stores. Just listen to the conversations. Listen to how they talk. Listen to their afflictions. Like, do they use conjunctions? Do they not? Just really take in the conversations and how they're saying it, what they're saying.
And you need to be watching Schoolhouse Rock. That'll really get your conjunction up to speed. You know what I mean? Conjunction. Blade Craver says, I saw there's a ton of Marvel delays of comics for August already. I'm starting to worry delays, not story quality, is a threat to the comic industry. So, Drew, we know that the preview edition from Marvel came out Wednesday. By Friday, 42 of those comic books had already been delayed, like seriously delayed. Are you guys worried about this as well?
We're pissed. Trust me, Sean yesterday was pretty pissed about it, because we launched a Mandalorian cover, a couple covers yesterday. They did well, but the issue itself isn't coming out until July. So we're pretty pissed.
So you pre-sold them, and then they delayed the book.
Yes, till July. So safe to say Sean's pretty livid about that. But it's going to be hurting us. But we're trying to do what we can to pre-sell some of these books. Pre-selling can be dangerous, yes, but they do tend to eventually come out. And if people want refunds, we'll get one of the refunds. But this is not good. And
it's a lot of delays.
Yes, it's a lot.
We're getting all these weird weeks, Gade, where you'll have like 8 Marvel comics come out in a week, and then the next week it'll be 22. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's really well. Okay, so part of this is there's multiple components to it, but the one thing you have to take into account is a lot of the delays are blaming on paper printing shortages.
Yes.
Whether that's 100% true or not, I'm skeptical about that, but let's just go with that. But the second part of that is not every comic gets printed at the same printer. They spread them out in different locations for different places. So what might be a shortage in one spot is not a shortage in the other. But what's happening?
If you have a story that's 40 issues in total, and they have to come out in order.
Yeah, they have to come out in order. One printer might be okay, the other one might not. But why that's a problem? That's Marvel's fault, or let's talk about Marvel. Marvel's fault is they're not saying, well, they're not prioritizing. Mm-hmm. They're not saying these particular issues are our key critical issues. The one we know we're always going to get the most ROI, the most bang for our buck, and we know that printer is doing okay. Let's take out One Star Squadron number 5. That's DC, sorry, but let's take out Spider-Punk number 2. Let's take Spider-Punk number 2 out, and then put in
send that up to Canada.
Avengers or X-Men, not X-Men because they've got like 7 titles out in a week, or the Eternals, anything that's leading up to Axe. Let's keep those in because that continuity is important, and it's important that they all stay together in one separate line. Spider-Punk is not a priority. It doesn't matter for anything. It's a terrible comic. Why are we allowing that one to print when we're getting out of order with Axe, and we're getting out of order with Legion of X versus X Incorporated and all this other stuff that's going on?
No, Devil's Reign was out of order. You're
getting spoilers of big events in this series.
They're saying we know there's a shortage problem, or there's a resource contention problem with only certain printers are being able to print at certain times. Let's pull out what is not necessary. Let's prioritize what is necessary so we can at least keep the continuity going with the big hitters. And they're not doing that. And that's on Marvel. That's not anybody's fault but Marvel. Editorial, if you want to look at it that way. So that's all on them, and it's just nothing to do about that other than to say you got to get better people making better decisions.
DC had a big mess up this week. The DC versus Vampires Hunters came out, and that spoils the whole story for DC versus Vampires.
Yep.
Which isn't even over yet.
They're not prioritizing. It's again, going back to the earlier conversation, it's the Netflix problem. What is important? What do our viewers want? Let's prioritize that. And if that means we have to cut away the less productive stuff or the shows that we're spending money on that nobody's going to watch, like Anti-Racist Baby, that is a real title, if anybody wasn't aware of that. Why are we spending our precious money on that when we should be spending our money on anime, which is extremely popular on Netflix? But somehow they cut their animation division because they were short on funds by securing the rights to like first run movies instead of going to their streaming shows for maybe studios that don't, like A24. Does A24 have a streaming service? I don't think so, but their movies are really popular. Maybe they should get a deal with them and then stream and put their money into that. So they're not prioritizing. They're not making decisions of focusing on the core stuff that really counts, that's going to keep the reader's attention, that's going to make the money. And then the extra stuff that is really niche or focus on a really small population, leave that to the wayside, or we'll come back to it when we have money to burn, which is nobody right now. And so they just need to get focused on what matters, and they're just not doing that.
Callum Miles says Alan Moore had the energy to rebuild his characters, which is more than Tom King does. He probably took baths with his mom. Pretty good art, you know what I mean? I like where Callum Miles heads out on that one. It's not subtle. It makes an impact. He might be right. We do have some other stuff to talk about. We never talk about Namor on the channel, so let's do this one. We definitely want to get into the MCU changing the Namor origin story. And I can somewhat get this, Gervais. Namor's origin, like if you just do the basic facts of it, is very, very similar to Aquaman. Aquaman's already been In a movie, people know the Aquaman story. His dad is a human. His mother was Atlantean. They had forbidden love, and now he's kind of the king of Atlantis. Obviously, Namor came in continuity before, before Aquaman did for DC Comics. Aquaman was kind of a, basically copying that character for the DC universe. But since they got to the movies first, they're going to redo Namor, and he's no longer going to be Atlantean. He's actually going to be like from Central America or something like that. I can understand why they're doing it, but I still hate it. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense because basically you can almost, as much as I hate using a word, because I agree with someone that earlier said that basically woke just gets used as a catch-all to just describe everything negatively, but it's like, yeah, so he's going to become Central American and everything that goes along with that ethnic identity, so we can differentiate him as much as possible from the Aquaman thing. And I think, again, this is one of those things, because I went to see with my family to see the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And I think sometimes we in the industry, we give a lot of weight to stuff that everybody else in the world doesn't necessarily care about. And I don't think anybody cares about the fact that Submariner is also from Atlantis. It's just like, I think people recognize it's Marvel's version of an underwater character. He comes from Atlantis too. And the fact that Namor was there in continuity-wise before Aquaman, it's really Aquaman's more, some ways, a ripoff of Namor than the other way around. So I just think this is one of those things, they just overthought it. I think they overthink it. Sometimes you're just being so different for the sake of being different, when it's like the only person who cares about that difference is you. And it takes away from Namor a lot of what his backstory is and what would be some of the interesting stories. So we'll see. I mean, I guess my thing is, it's more like, is he still going to consider himself like king of the seven seas, if you will? Like he considers above the oceans his kingdom, above humans and all that kind of stuff. But that's my thing about it. But I think it can be somewhat of a trap that we in the industry get into sometimes, is that we think things are a bigger deal to the quote unquote normie audience than it actually is. I think they can process the fact that there's two heroes who both are from Atlantis. So I think it's sticking to overthinking it.
Jervain, you're right. It's like they need to stick to those core principles of Namor. Just that smug, elitist, hate surface dwellers, those Atlanteans. They get almost practically an anti-hero. Like Dr. Doom, effectively. Just if they can get to that level of Namor, stick with that. That's great. Fine. Perfect. All right. Make him whatever he is now, whatever he's going to be. But that's what I want. If they don't, they make him a silly Billy guy stumbling over himself, Dick Van Dyke style. It's like, what the fuck are we doing here? This is not Namor.
People need those touchstones to kind of help them get an understanding of the character quicker. So it's like when you want to introduce something wholly new and different into it, it's almost like you're making it more, I would say, difficult for them to kind of get like where you want them to be with the character, so they can kind of start exploring some of the more inner stuff. So it's just, I don't know if the Central American thing is introducing a level of difficulty, if you will, into getting to know the character that just isn't necessary. It actually complicates the issue more than it helps.
So I'm just going to jump in. When I found out that they were going for that Central American aspect, the first thing I thought of was, because they've been pretty upfront that they don't want to mirror stuff that DC's done, specifically this with Aquaman, Stephen Grant, and Moon Knight with Bruce Wayne. They purposely made decisions to change characters so it wouldn't be too relative. So when I found out they were keeping the Central American thing, the first thing I thought of is, I wonder if they're purposely taking like a Mayan slant with this, because it's quote unquote the lost civilization, and going to try to like merge and mesh the two. And if they do that, I understand, because that's an excuse for, where they can lead and lean into things. But at the same time, again, I don't know if you need it with this. Like, you're not doing a Namor movie, Namor showing up in a different film. And you don't have to do a Namor movie. You can keep him as a supporting character or critical character throughout multiple stories without diving completely in.
And the other thing with Marvel is, I don't understand why you're worried about the whole DC comparison to Aquaman, when the whole problem with the DC Aquaman to begin with is everybody thinks he's their low-rent version of the MCU's Thor. Because that's what he is. He's like, oh, they got a party guy who's a god. Well, we got a party guy over here who's, I mean, that they're both frat boys in a sense. So I mean, I would have actually said, here's a cooler version of Aquaman, and his name is Namor, and check this out. So that's the tack I would have taken. Yeah.
Yeah. The eyebrows, man. It's all about
you got to have the eyebrows. You got to have the eyebrows
and the Spock ears. The Spock ears, baby. Yeah. That's
got to have like
the
that.
wing, and the wing
Javaine's right, and I'll even take it a little bit further. Is for the vast majority of normies, and I mean that with reverence, respect, everything else. Nobody's going to know. I mean, because Namor is not an A-list character, so that nobody's going to understand. I think what gets people who have been in comics for a long time and have read a lot of the comic story is we know the history and the potential of what that impact of that character on the Marvel universe. Primarily as an adjunct member of the Avengers, but sort of yes, but not really. And in particular, his relationship with the Fantastic Four. And so when you start to see that the MCU is going to take Namor and completely rework his history and background, in my mind, just instinctively, I say, oh, so that means all those stories where he was like important and good and he added something interesting, that you're never going to do all of those stories. All of that history is now going to be gone because it's not the same character anymore. And now that could be true.
And it takes away.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, and it takes away a major motivation from the character as well, because the whole thing is that he comes from Atlantis, which was a civilization which ruled and existed long before modern man comes along. And what's Namor's major motivation is that his people basically got wiped out by those who ruled the world now. And so when you have this when you have this thing in the Central America thing, I just don't see how that plays into the character. So it almost gets into like this back to the Harley Quinn thing. When you take away the thing that basically drives the character, it's like you essentially have an entirely new character. And you end up having to do all this work now that was already implicit in the character to begin with, because you're changing something as major as where they came from. That's the whole point of Namor. The reason why he's seen as a good anti-hero is because he actually, in one sense, has a just cause. He just has a really jacked up way of going about it.
I think you can still go that route with the character, though. I think I genuinely believe that what we're hearing about where he's from is strictly like, I think we're getting a changing of the setting, and I think that's it. And I think you're seeing a cultural change of the character to met, and this is why I mentioned the Mayan thing. I think that's what they're going to play into. You're still going to have a lost society that got wiped out. You're still going to have a kingdom that he's trying to protect, and he can still see himself as being above others. You can still have all those elements with this change, but we're going to have to wait and see. If they don't play into that is their own fault, and that it's another bad decision they're making. If all they do is change the location and slightly change his culture, quote unquote, I'm fine with it. Just keep his story and his characterization outside of that the same.
Yes, something no one's brought up yet is this is really the first example of the MCU playing any kind of defense. Because up until the last couple of years, they would have just said, "Screw you, we're doing it this way because we're the MCU." Now, again, the MCU, I've always been able to separate the MCU from Marvel Comics. Unfortunately, the people that make Marvel Comics don't seem to be able to do that. So 100%. What I'm thinking is what's going to happen is they're going to slowly transform Namor in the comics to fit this movie version. That will wipe out all the stories Gabe was referencing.
Yes,
because they can't help themselves.
Shang-Chi. They did that a lot
with
Shang-Chi.
You're right, Bree.
But the second thing that nobody said that they're going to do this. So this is me projecting to the future in the most cynical and pessimistic terms. But by putting in Central America and just having it be a lost civilization there, I could see how they would use that to have a character that was completely created around the concept of colonialism, because of the idea that maybe the Spaniards and the European explorers came over to Mexico, Central America, South America, wiped out a lot of those tribes because of disease and colonial conquering mandates and everything else. And the reason this Atlantis is being wiped out is because of colonialism, and that'll start percolating up in every conversation he's a part of. And if that shows up, and that's just being pessimistic and projecting forward, but if that shows up, that's where I would start to pull back. Is like, I'm not sure that this rework was worth the trouble.
You just gave them ideas. They're listening right now. We're working.
We already know that it's going to be the Eternals wiping them out with diseases. Come on.
So we do have some comments from the viewers. We got Cal Mile. Also, Gore is just a guy in pale makeup, and I don't think we'll see the God Butcher, the Kratos from God of War of Marvel. It shows they don't care.
They could use some prosthetics.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on this. One, if you have an actor as good as Christian Bale, he's probably came in and he wanted to make sure his face was shown. So at that point, you have to decide: do you want Christian Bale or do you want full CGI? And yes, you can make the argument they could have done it like they did with Thanos, and CGI'd enough of him in there that you could see it. But that probably comes down to Christian Bale. And at that point, as a studio and as a director and as a team, you have to decide: do we want Christian Bale or do we want to go with this? I think Christian Bale's a good pull, so fine. The God Butcher aspect, look, I don't have a lot of faith in Taika Waititi right now. He makes good stuff, but he doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't make good superhero movies. He's a funny guy. He does some funny stunts. And they've already talked about how much of this movie was ad-libbed. But if he can't bring some weight in where there needs to be weight and where there needs to be emotion, and that's what Ragnarok did terribly, it just glossed right over it or just skipped right past it. If he can't bring those elements in, this is going to fall apart. And you have a chance to do something intense with gore and add some weight and some character moments. And I'm nervous we're not going to get either of those.
It all looks like one big comedy again, but to the next level from Thor Ragnarok, which was already a punchline on Ragnarok. This is a bigger punchline.
And I've made this argument. I've heard people come back and be like, yeah, but in the trailer, like some of Christian Bale's scenes look like they're going to be really intense. Yeah, some of the scenes with Hela look like they're going to be really intense, and they were a joke. Like, she made a joke of the characters. It was a joke. They weren't intense. Like, we'll see.
Absolutely. We got Cal Miles says, Gabe, I DM'd you the stuff. Yep. Take your time, and he's ready for it. Joey says, good to see Gervain. Might have misspelled it. So, Gervain, we often have the silent letter. You have the invisible letter. There's no R in your name. How do you get Gervain?
I get Gervain because, first of all, my parents. Yeah, my parents. So I'll tell the story real quick. My mother's name is Vivian. My father's name is Robert Eugene Dargan, but everyone called him Gene. So Gene. So they took the G of his name, put Vivian together, and then totally tossed to the winds how you would phonetically pronounce that. So I get Germain. It should be Gevian. If I was French, I think they said it would be Gevion. So that would probably be better. But since I'm not French, I get Gevian. But basically, it would be spelled like that. And when it comes to the R thing, I can't help nobody with that. I think because so many people are just used to going like Jermaine Jackson or Jermaine, whatever it is, that's where the R comes from. But yeah, you're right. The R is silent. The rest is just messed up.
Basically, what you're saying is you're some French water with a little bit of flavor.
Well,
there you go.
Jermaine, if you ever want to save a lot of time, if somebody brings it up again, just say Krzyzewski.
He's Polish. This shit happens. Cal Lyle says it'll probably be about him on the border. I don't think it will. I mean, maybe they'll use some analogies or some symbolism there. I wouldn't doubt that, but I don't think that we'll see a lot of him on the border itself. To be completely honest. Robert in the Hood says Mira poops in beds. That's what the testimony sounds like. Yes. That's rough, man.
She's a keeper.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the military, so I got some poop stories, but I've never had anyone poop in my bed. So that one's not a very good one. Chuck Skills says, what really stinks is they mentioned Atlantis in Endgame. So why not roll with it? I don't remember them mentioning Atlantis in Endgame. Did they?
They did?
No.
I have to watch it again.
They reference that there's earthquakes underwater, but I don't think they actively say Atlantis at any point.
Does anyone remember that part? I don't know.
I remember.
You think they would have maybe gotten ready for that. But I don't particularly remember that. But if they did, then they should just roll with it. Might as
Agreed.
well. You already introduced the idea.
Yep.
Cal Wild says, "What if they had an X to his name? Are you like to Gervain's name?"
I think it makes the name worse.
No, that gets me into way too much trouble if that's the case.
Gervainians. Name or X? What would it be? Naxor? I don't know. It doesn't have the same. It doesn't have the same ring to it. I don't think they'll do that one. We do have HH from Sigma Comics. Greetings from Phoenix Fan Fusion. With Mike Barron's guidance, Here Comes Calico 5 hits like a hammer on Kickstarter. The Jiggler looms. All issues will soon go to Gabe, the toughest reviewer, the very best, no ducking. Oh, very nice. Man, you're going to be savage, right, Gabe? There's no quarter, right?
I'll be firm but fair.
Yep.
If you're in the Phoenix area, definitely go to Phoenix Fan Fusion. Go see HH and the fellas at Sigma Comics. He's going to be on the channel, I believe, this week. I have to finalize the dates on that one, but should have a good time. Best of luck and congratulations on Here Comes Calico number 5 going on Kickstarter. And I bet it's a lot of fun work with Mike Barron. He's got like the best Star Wars comics I ever read in my life, Mike Barron.
Some of the best Punisher comics. And Nexus.
And Badger. Yeah.
Nexus, yep.
Can't forget about that one. We've also got Cal Lyle. Also, they'll make Zeus an overweight buffoon like Dan Slott, not that Chad that fired lightning at Darkseid the movie.
Yeah, Russell Crowe does look like Dan Slott at this point, which is pretty bad.
Oh, come on. He doesn't look like Dan Slott.
Yeah, he's getting, I mean, take away the kiss plate. I don't know.
He's just rounding out in the form. You know?
He's a little fluffy. They made him bigger for this. Like, he's clearly wearing a fat suit in this, but it's Taika Waititi's take. What do you expect?
Remember when Russell Crowe, like anything that he did was guaranteed to be not good, but fantastic?
Yeah. In like
2 or 3
2000.
years. Yeah.
2001, 2002.
Starting with what was that? LA Confidential.
LA Confidential. Oh,
his best movie he's ever done. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Easily.
Yeah,
Master and Commander is still my favorite, though.
Master Commander, Gladiator,
that's a good one.
Virtuosity.
Yeah.
I think people underestimate Virtuosity.
Beautiful Mind was even good for
Denzel
Oscar
Washington.
bait.
That was good.
Yeah, good stuff.
Quick and the Dead. He was good in that.
I don't know about that one. You got who was that?
Sharon
Is that
Stone.
Sharon Stone supposed to get me scared about being
Leonardo
a ghost?
DiCaprio.
Sam Raimi directed that one, I think.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi doesn't miss often, but I'll take it. So I'll disagree with Drew on that one. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. I think we have time to hit one more up. Let's talk about this big major death that we got. Drew, what did you think about the death of Deathstroke? That thing was awesome, huh?
He dies.
What do you think, Drew?
Oh, my God. I laughed. I laughed out loud. I mean, I sent you as soon as I got done reading it. I sent you the photo. Here we go. Big reveal. Big.
You're talking about Geoforce. I'm talking about
that's
when
it, with
Deathstroke.
But we all.
I want to talk about that Geoforce one.
Who didn't know that was Geoforce?
We all know that Deathstroke's coming back. He was in the Dark Crisis Future State in game whatever preview, and
That's true.
And Geoforce, like, really, this guy? Are you kidding me? But it would have made.
He was
more
escaping
sense.
through like tunnels that he created by jumping into the ground, so that's kind of figured it was him.
Yeah, but I think it would have made more sense emotionally if they focused more on Terra and what him taking advantage of Terra. If they focused more on that, and it would have made more sense and be like, oh, he's getting back to the primal reason why. But they didn't. They just
It was
kind
like
of
40 years ago. Get over it. You know what I mean?
his underage sister was taken advantage of.
What are you, the Red Viper?
Yeah, and also, and Drew, you might have to, or Drew and Gabe, didn't they bring Tara back recently for Christopher Priest's Deathstroke run, and they had her in there for like a hot second, and then
I don't remember that part.
Maybe, but I don't remember for sure.
I know he killed Deathstroke as well in his Deathstroke.
Yeah.
Deathstroke don't stay dead. You know what I mean?
No.
Look, I'm still having a debate with Wes about what was the more acceptable Batman book of this week, and I'm still saying Detective Comics because it didn't royally piss me off.
I think Robin was better than Detective Comics.
When you've got a book that's doing this, the Geoforce and Deathstroke death, and you've got the whole story saying that Batman's going to break his rule because Deathstroke's gonna kill Clown Hunter. Like I'm peeing on the book and then I'm burning it. How about that?
I like the part where Talia al Ghul catches his sword, stops it with her bones,
and doesn't have her hand chopped off. Yeah.
That's Rob Roy right there, baby. That's what he got that one.
Rob Roy, that was actually a good movie. I like Tim Roth in that
Yes,
one.
it was.
He's very despicable.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he is.
Liam Neeson.
Terrible,
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
But I agree with Drew. This would the Geoforce thing would have hit more home if the motivation was better. I mean, it's in character for Geoforce. I mean, he had a big fight with Superman about basically, so he doesn't have a problem with killing people, but it was just, the motivation would have been better if it had been more around terror. So I definitely agree with that.
And the fact that Geoforce is like
got to reach for that.
muscular wise 2 times bigger than Deathstroke. Like how'd you fit in the suit?
Yeah, basically.
Like when Batman ripped off his suit where he was being Psycho Pirate in that hotel
Oh
room.
my god!
How did you pull that off? Psycho Pirate's $150, soaking wet.
Yeah, he knows Metamorpho. Get him to do that. Whoever.
You know, I no bottoms.
That was about as believable as the Red X reveal in Teen Titans Academy when it turned out there was 3 of them, and they were all different people. It's like, wait a minute, wouldn't there be a difference in size or body weight or something?
I just watched Scream last week. It was great. Let's just steal that.
How do you have 3 different people portray the same character and nobody noticed they're 3 different people? How does nobody know?
Very well played.
Oh man.
I made Doc read Teen Titans Academy 15, since the last issue this week. We reviewed it on Monday. It was pretty bad. Did you get to read it, Drew? Or I'm sorry, Gabe.
No. I swore off that title.
Drew, did you have to read?
Oh, I read it, reviewed it, hated it. Just glad it's over. But what they have done to Cyborg and Changeling is absolutely is ridiculous. It's disgusting, and that's got to be retconned quick, fast, and in a hurry.
I don't know if it's disgusting. Is it disgusting?
Well, it's the fact that everyone is laughing about it.
Well, it's not like they're attached to the dick or something. You know what I mean?
They're treating it like gross. It's like they are. They're in the same body, but Dick Grayson, Tara, not Tara. I'm sorry, Raven, Starfire. They're all laughing about it. These guys, they had their bodies, their lives destroyed, and they're merged together now. This is disgusting. You guys are laughing about it like it's a joke.
Man, if I was merged with Gabe, I wouldn't think it was disgusting. Little cramps. Like, better person.
I don't know you like that, Wes.
Hey, you will maybe one day if we get merged like old Beast and Cyborg. What was it, Cybeast? What a dumb idea. The fact that they actually completed that idea was introduced in Future State, and they actually did it in 2 years.
Yes, they did.
They had 2 years not to do it.
The biggest surprise of that title is that it lasted that long. I mean, just nobody cared about that title.
It shows how amazing Tim Sheridan is as a writer. And he's going to be on Action Comics next, then Superman, then Justice League. Like, who knows?
Reed, what do you think of the old Deathstroke? How many times that character died?
Yeah, Deathstroke.
Let's see.
I don't keep up. Yeah, I don't keep up with Deathstroke that much, but
Carrie
Scotty's really able of it.
Too many. See, I was gonna mention how Geoforce that this kind of what separated Geoforce from his sister was the ability to differentiate between right and wrong. Mm-hmm. But I'm probably thinking about 4 Geoforces ago. So I really don't know what Geoforce is in this version of DC. But I said if he was going to do this, wouldn't he have done it all the way back to before Crisis? Because if he blamed Deathstroke for what happened to his sister, because what he didn't know and only the readers knew was she was actually calling the shots in that relationship. She was more of a psycho than he was.
She's like a Lolita.
So,
which would have been a great element in this issue if Deathstroke said, like, "Oh, you want to know who's really pulling the strings? Yeah, you want to really know who's the manipulator." That would have really thrown him off.
I don't think it would have worked though. It'd be like your 13-year-old sister was controlling me.
And like, but that would have been. But he could have said that, if they'd done a scene like that where he's saying, "You think that I corrupted her? She was corrupt when I found her. That's what drew me to her." And then he said, like, lies, and then take him out. But
just throw him off his game. It would
He
be
wouldn't
great.
kill him. It's Tali that kills him.
Well, I'm saying if he was going to have done that at any point, that would have been the time.
Yeah, so I did go back just because I was trying to remember. I did go back and look up and see what the Terra story is according to DC Rebirth. And the way her character was written for this is she was kicked out of Markovia because she was a terrible person, because she was a con woman. That's why she started working for Deathstroke. And they retconned the Judas contract to the degree that she had emotions for Slade, but Slade didn't reciprocate. And then they changed the ending of the Judas contract that she didn't end up killing herself or dying because of her like freak out, because he finally reciprocated to calm her down.
What the fuck?
That's
rocket scientists, all of them. Jesus.
oh man.
Just wipe it all away. Just wipe it all away.
We
So-
do have a couple of super chats. Neostar says, seems like it'd be easier to introduce Marvel superheroes from Central America rather than changing Namor. I personally love to see characters like Reptile and Firebrand show up in the MCU.
Sure.
I know this is going way back. Didn't the Super Friends have some kind of Aztec Mexican superhero?
El Dorado.
Was that it? Was that it? He had like a red cape.
Let's
He
go
had a
save
red
the
cape,
world.
and he had like a one of those glyphs like around his chest or something like that.
Yeah, his whole thing was
I wish
that he
they bring the
disappears
Apache
really
Chief
cool.
back too. Good stuff. Back
You know
in
what?
the day.
It's not anything worse than you get today.
That's true.
Not anything worse than you get today.
Very true.
Man, I wish we could have characters like that nowadays. Everything has to be very. I think everything gets a sensitivity reader, Gervais. Could this offend anyone? Let's take anything that could be offensive about it.
El Dorado's greatest superpower was that he managed to make Black Vulcan look cool. So, hey, what can I say? Well, you can make Black Vulcan in the short pants. I don't think he had short pants. When you make Black Vulcan look cool, yeah, you're pretty powerful. But yeah, no,
was Black Vulcan just a renamed Black Lightning, or was he a different character?
No, it was. It has something to do with not wanting to pay Tony Isabella royalties.
The royalties, yeah. It was part of the diversity effort because that's why he had Samurai there too. Samurai there too,
really
but
good,
that's basically
an Apache Chief.
That's what that was.
Apache Chief.
They have a pretty good prominent Central American. Well, I guess it's not Central American; it's South American character in the X-Men that they could definitely use. We would see in
Sunspot, right?
Sunspot, yeah, within the Marvel
Sunspot.
comics.
Oh yeah,
He'd be a good character to use. That's pretty established. He was kind of cocky. You kind of like him, but hate him at the same time.
He was like Namor. I mean, he was like Namor. They had those strong nationalist beliefs with their nations, and they've really gotten away from that with Sunfire, which is a shame.
Wasn't he in the New Mutants movie, the Sunspot? I thought.
Yes.
Oh, I got confused. I'm sorry. I got Sunfire.
Yeah, you're talking about the dude from like the original
Japan.
Giant Size.
Japan.
Yeah.
Sunfire's from Japan.
yeah. But Sunfire too was the same thing. He's very nationalist hero.
Cool
Yeah, he's
character,
definitely the same thing.
Yeah,
left him.
Sunspot was in New Mutants, and he was in Days of Future Past. So,
Hey, you already got the character. You probably got a couple of actors who can play him. So, yeah, there's other ways to do it, but I get why they don't want the Namor character to be too similar to Aquaman. It'll seem like they're copying it, even though Namor came first. Kenneth Dalek says, I read Nightwing 92. I'm really digging that artist, Bruno Redondo. Bloodhaven has never looked so good like New York or Chicago. He should do a Spider-Man book. All right, Josh, I know you are the biggest Redondo fan. Get on there.
Look, I like Bruno Redondo. I think he's a great artist. I would say that I don't know if Bloodhaven is supposed to look good. So that would be a criticism that I have. It's supposed to be seedy. It's supposed to rival Gotham and how seedy it is. That was kind of the point of Bloodhaven, because they were trying to let Nightwing stand on his own and become his own hero, and then we just keep reverting him back to like sidekick. But I think one of the reasons I love Bruno Redondo is he's consistent with his art, and he's a great storyteller with his art, and we don't always get enough of that in comic books. So,
and the colors do pop. I'll give him that. They color very well.
I don't think he does his colors.
I'm just saying, but they color him well.
Yes, 100%.
A very good style on that one. So, Nightwing 92 is probably the best issue of Nightwing, I think, in probably 15 months. Although I am tired of the run just basically doing nothing, but that one in particular was a good video or a good comic book that did nothing.
Yeah, I really love the way they wrapped up the whole Heartless storyline. I think they did a fantastic job doing that.
There's a string of that thing out. It's like there's a serial killer that's just ripping people's hearts out. But Dick Grayson doesn't have time for it. He's just like, I don't have time to go get that serial killer. I've got to create Haven. So I can impress Bruce and make. I got to
retell stories with John Kent and lollipops.
It legitimately feels like someone at DC or someone on Twitter was like, "So whatever happened to Heartless?" And then everyone was like, "Oh shit, we never finished that." And then like throw him because like you had him as the main antagonist, and then you went into Fear State, and then you had shit since then, like nothing.
You know what the worst part is he's literally ripping the hearts out of homeless people.
Yeah,
all the people that Dick Grayson wants to help. He's like, "Fuck this! I'm not getting that guy. I'm just going to build you a food shelter, a little place to sleep. I'm not going to solve this crime.
Build a statue for Alfred." Yeah.
My goodness. Happy Steve says, hoping there's a hard reset post Dark Crisis. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. We'll see.
We shall see. Kenneth Dowling says, I don't see why Marvel should worry about Namor. Everyone knows Marvel and DC copy from each other. I like Namor over Aquaman. I agree with everything Josh said about Thor: Love and Thunder. Yep. It's not Doc is right, it's Josh is right.
Dang.
What the hell did you say about Thor: Love and Thunder that was so smart anyway?
Exactly what I said. There's a playback. You can go back and watch it.
Taika Waititi is just a really bad director or like a writer for something like this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I hated Thor Ragnarok. I mean, I didn't hate it. That's a strong word, but I did not appreciate it.
Agreed.
It was entertaining on its own, but as a Marvel movie and continuing the Thor story, I didn't think it really worked.
Well, that's the thing about going back to what we said at the very beginning is, sometimes there's a tendency to get cynical, and Ragnarok is just like a popcorn flick. It's just like fun, jokey popcorn. You're not supposed to take it seriously. Well, you could have taken it seriously, but they chose not to. And if you just go with it, it's fine. I would say with Gore, the God Butcher, I mean, his name is God Butcher. So if you get jokey with Gore, the God Butcher, you done messed up. That's not a character you get jokey with.
I look, if they had changed one scene in Ragnarok and they would have put more weight into Odin dying, I would have appreciated that movie so much more, but they didn't. You get like 2 seconds and it's a joke again.
It was just a plot device.
Yeah, just
and Asgard blowing up, that was a joke. At the very end, it's like, are you kidding me? Asgard just fucking blew up. This is Ragnarok. This is the hell. This is it. Okay, whatever. Sure, Taika Waititi, comedy genius. Yeah.
All right, so Josh, what everyone wants to know, what are your thoughts on Naked Thor? Is he a 10? 9?
Okay, so I actually laughed out loud at that moment because I thought it was funny. But look, I didn't hate the full movie Ragnarok. There are plenty of moments where I laughed. I just wanted more out of the movie, and I'm probably going to want more out of this movie. But there are going to be moments where I laughed, and that was one of them. You flick too hard, I laughed out loud in my office. So.
There you go. Josh was a fan. You like the old Naked Thor moment. Yeah. Thank you very much to Kenneth and everybody for supporting the channel. We had a lot of fun today. Carlos 8560 says Taika Waititi hates Thor. Thoughts? He just sees it as a cash grab. I think he sees all of these IPs as a vehicle to tell his jokes and to see what he can get away with. What will Marvel and DC or in Disney allow him to do in Thor? I think he kind of sees it as a personal challenge, really, Gabe.
I mean, Taika Waititi is a great comedic director. So, for example, I love What We Do in the Shadows, which is like I love that show and the movie it's based on. I mean, that's great stuff right there. It's basically a funny take on. It's kind of fish out of water take on vampires who've been around too long and just haven't caught up with the modern world. If you're not familiar, so stuff like that. I mean, so he's a great comedic director. I think the struggle is the same thing as the struggle with Namor, which is the stories, the history, the canon going back decades. If you're ever hoping that you're going to get an epic, weighty Thor story in the MCU, you're never going to get it. You just kind of have to in with the good air and out with the bad air and just let that go. It's never going to happen. You're never going to get the classic epic Viking, the Viking mythology story of Thor. It's never going to happen. It's over. It's done. It's never, unless they reboot 10 years from now and start all over. It's never going to happen. So we get what we get. I think, to your point, though, Taika Waititi excels as a comedic director. So if you're going to give him Thor, you're going to get comedy. If that's not what Kevin Feige wanted, he wouldn't have given it to Taika Waititi.
Right.
That's why he gave the first movie to
Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh, because Kenneth Branagh is a classical actor, classical director. He does all the Shakespeare stuff. Yeah. He does the Midsummer's Night's Dream and everything else. So he was looking to kind of get that epic feel. And the first movie is okay, but it didn't get that feel into it. So I don't know that Kenneth Branagh really kind of rose. I don't know if it was the story or whatever else, but I mean, it was okay, but it didn't hit that mark of feeling like a big classical mythological story.
Yeah, he got the Odin, Thor, and Loki part right.
Yeah, he got that right. But the point is, you give this tone of the story matches the tone of the director. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to give that story to a comedic director, you're going to get a comedic story. Directors generally don't flip flop like that. Some do, but that's rare. Mostly, horror directors like to do horror stories. Comedic directors like to do comedic stories. Drama directors like to do drama stories. So if you don't want comedy, you don't give it to Taika Waititi. So they did that on purpose. And this is
name the backup.
You're never going to get the big epic Thor. That's like a classical Viking mythological story. It's never going to happen. Just with the good air, out with the bad air. Just let it go. It's gone.
Just going back and reading Walt.
Kenneth Dowling says, question, Nightwing 87 is drawn like a huge fold-up poster. The entire book is a continued picture like an unbroken shot in a film. Has this ever been done in comics? Is this groundbreaking? To my knowledge, it hasn't ever done. Josh, this was the first time this has ever been done, right?
As far as I know, yes, because they made a point to take all the actual pages and lay them out across the DC office to capture that it's one continuous image. I think it's a feat. Like, kudos to Bruno Redondo for doing it, but it's one of those moments that just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think it's more for a pat on the back of saying we've done it rather than it actually aiding the story, because it does nothing for the story. But hey, they did it. They accomplished it. Good job.
Good luck trying to read that story on a tablet.
Yes.
Go the wrong way. Callum Lyle says Kelly Thompson can only make one face. I've never actually seen Kelly Thompson. I don't even know what she looks like, I don't think. What face does she have, Bree?
I would guess probably resting bitch face. I don't know.
Hey.
Get right in there, Bree.
Anyone threw the Bree for a reason? I don't know. I've never actually seen her. I've not really talked about her on the channel very much. None of her comics are very good, but they're never so bad that they're worth talking about. You know what I mean? It's kind of in the middle. So I think that is basically going to do today's show. Let's talk about some comic books that we want to recommend and what the panel members are doing. Gervais Dargan, you're the man behind Animated Concepts. You've been getting the startup going for a while now. How close are we? Are people close to?
We're getting close. The move into the new house threw you off a little bit, but we're getting close. So I don't like to announce it until I know things are for sure, because this thing with printers that are coming up, it's taking a while to get a quote on some stuff, but I anticipate soon. We're still plugging away at it. So yeah, still plugging away.
The move to the pantry threw you off, huh?
Like me and the Pillsbury Doughboy over here, we're still working things out. But yeah, it was a little bit more than anticipated, but it was good. So we got it here. But in terms of comic book recommendations, for me it was Batman Beyond the White Knight #3. I'm still enjoying that series. I was going to recommend Batman Fortress #1 because I just like the premise of it, but I think you guys are about to turn me off that one after today.
You should read it
I'm
first.
still with Godzilla vs. Power Rangers #3. That's one of those just fun reads. And then because I like and hope I don't mingle his name, David Watcher, Spider-Man 2099 Exodus #1. Those are my 4 for this week.
Very nice. Matthew Ward says, this is a banger of a panel. I'm glad for all the entertainment Wes brings. Also, bring back Born of Blood 2 later today. Or I'm also going to back Born of Blood number 2 later today. Truly quality comic book.
Thanks,
awesome.
Matt.
I aim to please and entertain everybody. And I know that Drew is very excited about Born of Blood number 2, and they got big plans for Born of Blood in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got 6 issues planned. I just turned in the script of issue 4, the first draft, to Joe. He and Aaron Sparrow are looking it over right now. I've got great editors. We're writing a kick-ass story. We're gonna make it the best from Merck Publishing. We're getting ready to cross $28,000 right now, and not even 24 hours, which is amazing. But trust me, there's no decompression here. It's just quality, kick-ass storytelling.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Matthew Ward. Do you have any comic books you want to recommend, or you want to wait till tomorrow, Drew?
We'll wait till tomorrow. But back Born of Blood 2.
You going to be in any Comic Cons or any panels next?
Oh, we're going to be at Dallas. All of us are going to have a big meetup. We're going to meet up with Josh, a few others. Hopefully get a big group shot, make Wes jealous.
Are you going to bring Fatal J in on this?
Oh, Fatal J's going to be there too?
That's what I'm asking. He's in Texas.
We'll see. Maybe.
You should definitely see if you can meet up with Fatal J. He's a pretty good guy, but you're going to have to buy him some breakfast burritos. You know what I mean?
I'll make that sacrifice. That's fine. I'll gladly make that sacrifice.
Who else we got? Eric Breen. Where should people be looking for you? I know you got the 4-color fossils where you do some work. Do you have anything cool coming up with the next few days?
Well, I said, I did want to plug that every Wednesday at 8:00 on the Graphic Man channel. It's a show called 4-Color Fossils, where a bunch of people in my age group, we get together, and Paulo Costa, our foreign correspondent, where we get together and we basically just show off old comics and pop culture, it's toys, magazines, things like that. And if you like, a little bit of comic history and seeing some stuff that you would maybe never see anywhere else, check it out. It's kind of fun.
Very nice. Do you have any comic books that you want to recommend this week?
Well, World's Finest. Everybody's doing that. Yeah. Still reading Hit Me. The girl got a little bit more likable, and the story kind of did take off. It's kind of curious to see how that ends up in Rocketeer.
Very nice. If you like old school Rocketeer, the art is fantastic in that one. Kenneth Dalek says Nightwing 92 and Amazing Spider-Man number 2. LA Confidential is among my favorite movies of all time. Watch West Wing. Wes, you'll like it. Have a great one, guys. Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'm glad you enjoyed Nightwing 92. It sounds like Amazing Spider-Man number 2 got things a little bit back more to a normal Spider-Man comic than maybe issue number 1 was. And I love LA Confidential. It's such a good movie.
One of the best scenes is Russell Crowe in the interrogation scene, interrogating
the chairs.
Just busting in the door. It's amazing.
Absolutely. I love cops beating up people, especially with the criminals. You know what I mean?
When there's a girl missing, Russell Crowe, he pulls no punches.
All right, Josh McDonald. So you guys are meeting up in Texas?
Yeah.
Our viewers invited. We've had someone say I'm in Dallas, or I'll be in Dallas.
Hey, look, if you're in Dallas at Fan Expo, by all means, reach out. I know, Drew said he's going to be there. I'm going to be there. MVP Max Von Priestley is going to be there. Joe Corralo is going to be there. Perch is supposed to be there. There's going to be a group of us there. I will not be able to be there the entire weekend. I'm still trying to pinpoint which days I can be there, but I will most definitely be there. And if you want to meet us, just shoot us a message. We're happy to meet up.
It's very nice. Are there any comic books you're recommending? Fortress number 1.
Whoa, good times. No, I'll say I'm enjoying Beyond the White Knight. It's not perfect, but it's still a fun book. Action Comics, make sure you pick it up. It's continuously good. Moon Knight, go ahead and pick it up. And then going outside of comics, if you haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, go see it.
Yes.
When you go see superhero movies and you're waiting for the fuck yeah feeling, and you don't get them because they haven't been happening lately, this movie delivers on that. So
you said it, Josh. I told my brother. I saw it twice on Thursday. I walked out of it the first time. The last time I felt that energized was after the first Avengers movie. I got to go back and see this again.
I went with some friends that are former military, and we went and saw it. And one of them, when we walked out, he was like, "I want to go fly a fucking plane now." And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah, sounds like it was an effective film. Somebody asked, Wes, what are your thoughts on Punisher issue number 3? I'm going to talk with Doc on Monday, along with Teen Titans Academy number 15. So if that might tell you how I feel about that comic book. Finally, we do have Gabe from Weird Science Comical Opinions. Do you have anything people should be looking out for, or what's going on there?
Sure. I mean, first of all, of course, shameless plug. Follow us on Weird Science DC Comics, Weird Science Marvel Comics, Weird Science Manga, and also Comical Opinions. DC, nothing really this week, but of course, we're World's Finest was good, really good. So if you're looking for something in that DC realm that feels like a really solid comic book, do World's Finest. On the Marvel side, I would give it to was a Moon Knight number 11. I think the last 2 issues are really starting to hit a stride that I like because the story's starting to get focused. Zodiac is the main guy. That's who you should be focused on from the beginning. So you had a lot of up and down the beginning. Didn't need that. So now we're focused on Zodiac, and now things are starting to move. So I like that a lot. As a second to that, I'd say Amazing Spider-Man number 2 was solid. My concern is they sort of ignored all the big what the moments from the first issue. They just sort of ignored that and just told the straight Spider-Man versus Tombstone issue. So I would give that as a second place for Marvel. Outside of Marvel and DC, I really liked Good Boy Volume 2 number 1. The first volume basically was a retelling of John Wick, but with dogs instead of people, and it was amazing. But the second volume picks up, but now they start to deviate from the film. So now they're telling. It's still with the same characters, but they're going in a different direction. And it was just action wall to wall, really compelling characters, and I loved it. So Good Boy Volume 2 number 1 from Source Point Press.
They turned Mayor Good Boy into John Wick.
Mayor Good Boy is I think it's a Scholastic book. And then...
The problem is normies won't know what you're talking about. Now if people get confused, it's your fault.
I want to say thank you everybody for supporting the channel. Thank you to everyone in the chats. Looks like everyone had a good time. Lots of good comic book discussions. Had a lot of fun this week. My recommendations will be live on the channel tomorrow with Drew. We've got about I think it's 7, maybe 8 comic books to recommend this week. Had a great time. Good seeing Eric Breed back, and we will see you next weekend right here on the Comics Aficionados.